Good evening. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Urbana City Council, and it's for the ARPA presentations. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Here.
Mr. Evans,
Here.
Ms. Hersey, Ms. Colasetti, Ms. Bishop, Ms. Wilkin,
Here.
Mr. Quisenberry,
Here.
Mayor Marlin.
Here. Next item on the agenda is approval of public input rules for this meeting, which will be continued until Wednesday night and then on to Thursday night. We are asking the council to approve a change to the public input rules to limit public input to 3 minutes per person instead of the usual 5, and a maximum of 30 minutes. And that's to allow the council to focus mainly on the ARPA presentations. And then we'll go back to the regular input rules for all of our regular meetings. So is there a motion to approve the public input rules that are attached to the agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Mary Alice, seconded by James. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. That motion passes. All right, now we'll move on to public input, which is the part of the meeting required by the Open Meetings Act. Is there anyone here from the general public who wishes to address the Urbana City Council? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to ARPA presentations. Tonight we have 14 presentations. The format and rules have been sent out to all the applicants, but I do want to give a bit of an introduction. The City of Urbana has approximately $10 million in American Rescue Plan Act, which is ARPA funds, to allocate for qualified projects. According to federal Treasury guidelines, the funds must be committed by December 31st, 2024, and spent by December 31st, 2026. The city contracted with the Champaign County Regional Planning Commission to help administer the funds, solicit public input, and worked with city council and staff to develop a concept plan to identify funding priorities and to guide decisions. The application for funds was opened in mid-September, closed on November 16th. The city received applications from community organizations and city departments requesting ARPA funds to address goals of the concept plan. The eligible applications have been reviewed and scored according to the metric. External applications were scored by city staff. Internal applications were scored by RPC staff. All eligible applicants have been invited to make brief presentations over the next 4 evenings. These will be 12-minute presentations, and they'll follow the same format. The first 6 minutes will focus on responding to 3 questions that have been sent in advance, and the second 6 minutes will be open to Q&A from City Council and Mayor. Applicants have also been asked to submit a 1-page executive summary to convey key information about the proposed project. Council members also have access to applications, the complete applications, which include the project budgets. I want to emphasize tonight that no funding decisions or allocations will be made until after the first of the year at the very earliest. Did you need to add anything, Will?
No, we'll hold up a yellow card here when there's approximately 30 minutes left to give a little visual cue for presenters, and then when presenters come up to the podium, all they have to do is press the down arrow or the enter key to advance their slides, and then the up arrow if you go too far.
So the yellow card means you have 30 seconds to finish up your thought, and we'll move on to the next segment of the presentation. Okay, our first presenter tonight, Carle Foundation Hospital for Hope Village, which is a tiny homes community with intensive care management for chronically homeless and medically fragile homeless individuals. So those presenting tonight, if you'll please come up to the table and make sure the green light is on your microphone, and please introduce yourselves. Go ahead and begin.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name is Claudia Lundhoff, and I'm the Executive Director of the Champaign County Health.
Could you make sure your microphone is on? Green light, is that, okay, good.
Sorry,
That's better.
it was light green. Good evening. My name is Claudia Lundhoff, and I'm the Executive Director of the Champaign County Healthcare Consumers. And CCHCC is one of the collaborators for the proposed tiny homes village, along with Carl and the University of Illinois.
My name is Phil Rowell. I serve as Vice President for Clinical and Business Intelligence, Digital Solutions, and Health Outcomes at Carl Health.
Okay, so the lasting impact of the project after the ARPA funds run out is that we will have created a sustainable community, shelter, and safer environment for the most vulnerable experiencing homelessness. And our view is that housing is health. Long-term housing infrastructure for a tiny homes village will be permanent and available to serve the community. And this will be a community-forward, housing-first project which will provide housing dignity and intensive support for the most vulnerable among the homeless. This project would be an excellent use of the city ARPA funds because it adds a desperately needed housing system to the housing inventory for those who are most vulnerable among us. Hope Village will stabilize and improve the lives and health of chronically homeless individuals and medically fragile homeless individuals who are under constant stress. It will also reduce the overall strain on the housing, healthcare, social services, and criminal justice system as people are stabilized. We are confident that we can use these funds in accordance with federal guidelines to achieve the demonstrable results in the required timeline because we have several options already for the Hope Village location that we are exploring. We collectively have extensive experience working with homeless individuals and medically fragile homeless individuals, and we have established trust among many of those individuals as well as the organizations that serve them. Also, we have studied many similar tiny home villages across the country who have successfully housed chronically homeless individuals. And while they are all different, just as different as their communities are, we are looking at the best practices and we've looked at the research and we are speaking to those tiny home village communities as well. Did you want to add anything?
Sure, absolutely. Pleasure to be here and to speak on behalf of this partnership. This is truly a partnership between the University of Illinois, Champaign County Healthcare Consumers, as well as Carl Health. It is our endeavor to ensure that we provide services to those that are most in need, and we are looking forward to the opportunity to do that through Hope Village.
We can move on to council questions if your presentation, that part is done. Okay. And James is going to help me keep track. We start, Mary Alice? Okay.
I'm wondering what your long-term plans are for support, for monetary support, in order to provide services and to sustain the village.
I'll do the first part. We will be constantly working to build support. It is going to require a village to sustain a village. There are lots of funding programs available through the federal and state governments, so we will be looking at grant funding, fundraising efforts, working with other organizations and with corporations, and we will build support that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Echo those comments and echo that sentiment. The fact of the matter is this is the initial stage, right? The groundbreaking stage, if you will, on building this community. And as needs arise and continue to change over time, we anticipate identifying members of the community, organizations, federal, state, municipal governments to assist in the procurement of funds to sustain Hope Village into the future.
We also believe that we'll be able to secure supportive housing, permanent supportive housing funding as well.
Go ahead, Chris.
You might not know the answer to this at this time, but I'll just ask it anyway. Do you have an estimate cost of each tiny home, how much it would cost?
Thanks for the question. And just to reiterate, the fact of the matter is we're studying other locales. There are different types of builds from builds in Montana, North Carolina, Austin, Texas, that obviously have different needs based on weather. So what we're trying to do is evaluate what that cost model looks like and come up with an efficacious solution. We don't have the exact number quite yet, but looking at the number of homes that we anticipate based on the size of area that we'll need, we'll be able to come up with a figure to sort of extrapolate what that cost would be over time. Great question.
And one of the differences between our vision for this versus others is our homes will have bathrooms and kitchens in them. A lot of these tiny homes do not necessarily have that, so.
Your plan is for 30 tiny homes and some other buildings. Do you have a general sense of what the total village will cost to construct?
Sure. So what we started to look at was the fact that we are looking at 30 homes to start with. That's based on the Champaign County Healthcare consumers' engagement with the public and sort of a needs assessment. We might find that we need more as time goes on. So what we're trying to do is anticipate providing services via 30 tiny homes, as well as a community center or sort of a core building in the middle to provide those supportive services, potentially access to preventative care facilities, multi-purpose rooms, some of those sorts of things that really build a community, and co-locating that within Hope Village. So in addition to those tiny homes, we're looking at a core building that would help us operate a number of different facilities and capabilities. From an overall cost standpoint, at this point in time, we are still in the planning process. We recognize that it will be in the millions of dollars, and our request for ARPA funds does not completely, essentially ask for all of the funds that are necessary or required. But what we're looking at is groundbreaking environmental assessments, the actual construction, and then to make sure that Champaign County healthcare consumers can lead from the front and ensure that they have staff to operate and manage this facility to start with.
Chandra?
So you included with your application the table of tiny home communities across the U.S. I'm wondering, the type of housing varies. What are you looking for? Permanent, transitional? What kind of tiny homes would these be?
Great question. Are you okay if I answer that, or would you like to?
Go ahead.
So we are looking for housing that provides 4 seasons support, recognizing that our climate's going to dictate that, and as well as Claudia mentioned, being able to have services that make it feel like a home rather than more of a communal living space. So please, Claudia.
It would be permanent housing. There may be some people who choose to live there on a transitional basis and who might choose to move somewhere else after a while, but our goal is permanent housing. And if you've seen a lot of the tiny homes, they're often on wheels. Ours will not be on wheels. They will be situated on the ground, and they will be permanent.
Thank you.
What, if any, would be the cost to the people who use those services, reside in these tiny homes?
We are still working on that. The cost would not be prohibitive. We recognize that some of the people who will be moving in there, when they first move in, they won't have any income. Part of the services that we hope to provide, or that we plan to provide, is to help people who have disabilities apply for SSI and SSDI so that they can get income behind them. That's not just so that they can help pay rent at the tiny homes. It's for their benefit, and our rent would be very, very affordable. It would not be prohibitive, and we would work with each individual. But helping to pay rent will also help, support the tiny homes village itself.
Do you have a specific location in mind for this that you could share?
At this point in time, we don't have a specific location, recognizing that it will be domiciled within the city of Urbana. So we're evaluating a number of different potential options, but have not secured a specific option for the full intent and purpose of Hope Village.
Thank you.
Now, Chris? I'll start with Chris. Okay,
Oh.
okay.
Sure.
What would change in your plans if you were allocated $1 million instead of $2 million?
Sure. To start with, what we would look at is making sure that we had the appropriate allocation of funds for the supportive services portion, as well as the construction and sort of site evaluation standpoint. So we do recognize that this is a competitive ask. The number of community members behind us that have incredibly important programs that are asking for these funds, we do recognize the fact that, again, we're not asking you to cover the entire amount, nor are we asking for all of the funds across the city of Urbana. So we would definitely work within the confines of what we are granted in support of Hope Village.
it's kind of a stupid, obvious question, but will they have air conditioning and heating?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The other thing that I wanted to mention is that the homes would be accessible. We recognize that a lot of people have disabling conditions or may develop disabling conditions, and that's one of the issues in our community, is that a lot of times people cannot find accessible housing, and so we would make sure that we do that.
What dollar amount has Carl Hospital and the U of I committed to this project?
Sure, we haven't actually nailed down any specific dollar amounts. What we're contributing is our expertise, our support, our ability to manage federal funds, state funds, local funds, and truly driving this forward. So given the fact that we haven't fully solidified a site, we haven't actually procured tiny homes, we're in the formative stages of trying to understand what role these three cornerstones of our community can play going forward.
How soon will your nonprofit be starting?
Sure. So we are in the process of formulating that 501c3. There's a lot of paperwork to go through to get that process started. So we did want to be very transparent that it is a partnership between the U of I, Champaign County Healthcare Consumers, and Carl Health. We have lodged or started that paperwork process. It truly just depends on how long that will take to be finalized. So from 6 months or something like that is what we typically anticipate, but that definitely can go either way on the timeframes. Great question. Thank you.
Is there any way that we could support acquiring other grants or funding? It seems like there's a lot of potential funding options out there. Is there kind of another alternative we could help support with?
We are happy to apply for anything that's available, and we are also happy to leverage additional funds. As you know, once you get funded from one entity, you can often leverage additional funds as well. We would welcome help.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Our next presenter is City of Champaign Township for the Strides Low Barrier Shelter.
Are you ready for me, Mayor?
I'm ready for you.
Wonderful, thank you. Mayor, Council, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you this evening. My name is Andy Kornstrom. I'm the Township Supervisor in the City of Champaign. We also, as you probably know, have recently opened up the Strides Low Barrier Shelter, which is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week, 365-day-a-year low barrier shelter located at 70 East Washington in Champaign. For those of you that are familiar, that is a previously occupied building that sheltered residents. I want to just briefly provide you a history, and then I'll go into my presentation, and then I think your questions are probably more beneficial than me speaking. But for those that don't know, this community has been in desperate need of a 24/7 low barrier shelter for years. And in conversations between the City of Champaign and City of Champaign Township, we recognized that something needed to be done to address that need. And that's what got us here today. Over the last year, we have created a team and funding to provide a low barrier shelter for residents of Champaign County and beyond. And we opened that shelter yesterday, the capacity of 50 men, 10 women, and I can tell you that as of last night, it was completely filled up. So we're here today with a 24-hour low barrier shelter that provides comprehensive case management. We have 2 to 3 case managers available throughout the day, depending on the shift. Provides comprehensive medical care for residents, comprehensive mental health care, as well as the opportunity to address basic needs for residents, such as laundry, showering, and other things that they may not get outside on the streets. Additionally, our shelter provides a drop-in center that's available 24/7 as well. So for residents that may not be homeless but are unsheltered temporarily, we have not only shelter opportunities but also the same basic needs and case management that's offered to our shelter residents. As you can imagine, a 24/7 operation dealing with some of our most challenging residents in our community takes a lot of capital, but also takes a lot of work. And so we hired recently 23 staff members to not only manage the shelter, provide street outreach, but also, as I noted, case management and safety personnel. And so our current funding is through 2 years from now. The City of Champaign has ensured that we will be funded moving forward for 2 years. And then we are working to address funding as we move forward to extend that beyond. So with that, I will entertain questions.
Is it Chris?
I see that one of the larger expenditures is for security personnel, and we remember the closing of the last shelter was because of security issues. Do you feel like you've got this addressed, and that, like, was last night a very safe night? And,
Yeah, it was. There were no issues there. One of the things that we wanted to do was to provide our employees the training that they need to interact with the men and women that stay in our shelter. We think that's very important. We also want to be good partners with our public safety personnel with the ultimate goal of reducing the amount of times that Champaign Police and Champaign Fire have interactions with homeless men and women on the streets. And so part of our plan early on was to discuss with them some of the things that they thought that we should be doing once we opened. And so that was the pre-planning part. Our safety personnel have a diverse background, but all of them are trained in interacting with men and women, dealing with mental health issues. And so we believe that we have, knowing that we're going to evolve as we take on this challenge, we have a good basis as to provide those services. We want to be supportive. We want to be protective, but we also want to keep everybody safe. So, yeah, I think we've got the basis of what we need to know as it relates to safety. With, of course, that will likely evolve.
So you've got general funds from the city of Champaign to begin with, and you're here for ARPA money. What other sources of income are you seeking at this point?
So obviously there's township funding that's also incorporated into our operations. We will be looking at emergency solutions grants moving forward. We're looking at the combined grant between the City of Champaign and the City of Urbana that's also going on right now. We're going to be looking, quite frankly, at other local levels of government and community partners. Homelessness, of course, doesn't stop at Wright Street. It doesn't stop outside of the city limits of Urbana or Champaign. So we believe it's important that this is a community issue with community solutions. So we're going to be addressing that with communities outside of the urban area, up to and including the county, the University of Illinois, Rantoul, and of course Champaign and Urbana and the other townships. So it's a community issue that needs community solutions, and that's how we're going to address funding as we move forward, of course, with the addition of grant funding.
And if you receive less than your nearly 3 million ask, what's the plan there?
So that will just shorten the amount of time that our current period of operations will move forward. So currently, we're guaranteed to operate for 2 years. If we received half of the money that we've currently requested, then the amount of time that we'd operate past that 2 years would just be cut in half.
I had similar questions, and I'm still trying to understand. So you're saying Champaign is willing to fully fund it for the first 2 years?
Correct.
And then what you're raising now will be to sustain that beyond that?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for your presentation. With that in mind, how does that work in with the timeline for the funds to be expended?
So it actually works in quite perfectly. I believe funds have to be allocated. I'm by far the expert. Somebody here probably is. Allocated by 24, spent by 26, and so that actually puts us right on that timeline.
All right, thank you.
So your request for funds is for fully funding, having these ARPA funds pay for year 2025 and 2026 with no other funds that would be supporting the shelter?
That's correct.
Are you serving food at the shelter?
We're not. We have a relationship with Daily Bread, who's about a block away, to ensure that food's provided.
Okay.
Was one of your previous slides was that an annual operating cost?
It
Your
was. I'm
yearly
sorry, I'm going the
expenses
wrong
was
way. Yeah.
the question.
So you can see, generally speaking, the vast majority of our costs are personnel. The additional costs, of course, are just the general operating cost of a 24/7 shelter. But ultimately, we're right around 1.95 million a year.
Any more questions? Okay,
Thank you for your time.
thank you. Okay, the next presenter is See You at Home, Pathways to Progress. Okay, you may begin.
Okay, good evening. Thank you so much for allowing us to present to you. We did have 2 applications that we submitted, and we'll roll that into one presentation tonight. So the first request was the pre-development funds that we requested of about $400,000, and that really is pre-development work so that we have an opportunity to expand on the concept that we presented to you. So that would allow us again to bring the architects back in that worked on the pre-development concept with us. It would also allow us an opportunity to hopefully engage yourselves as the experts on the city of Urbana so that we ensure that we choose the correct location, the right service model, again, place to deliver these services to the homeless community. So that's kind of what that pre-development ask is for. We want to make sure when we break ground on the new building that, again, we're in the right place, we have the right model, we have the right design. So after ARPA funds run out, what will we have? We will have a well-designed, and so for us, what well-designed means is truly relying on trauma-informed care principles for service and design model for the building. We recognize that the building that we have is not just a place where clients come for services, it's a place where they're going to come and live for a period of time. So we truly believe that the environment that they are in needs to be a place where they can move out of that fight, flight, freeze crisis mode that they've been operating in as homeless individuals for some time in a lot of cases. We believe that we need a well-designed building that will allow us to have an opportunity to have clients, again, literally in the neurochemistry and biology of their brain, have an opportunity to be in the right environment to move towards stability. We've also thought about in the design of our building having clients have an opportunity to literally feel forward progress in what they're doing. And so for us, that means mid-barrier 1 would be literally closest to our ground floor, which would allow them to be closest to services. And mid-barrier 2 would be that next level, and then mid-barrier 3, for example, would be that top level. So it really promotes autonomy and empowerment all the way through the design of the building. The goal truly is community integration and not necessarily reliance on us as an organization. And so we want to promote that through the design of the building. So obviously we're community-based, we're a community-based organization. And for us, mid-barrier truly is clients who want to take next steps, clients who want to work with case management, develop resources, and again, work toward that community integration. So we are working in partnership, again, with other entities, organizations such as the Stride Shelter that just presented, so that we have an opportunity to engage clients on the entire spectrum of homelessness. So these obviously are one-time funding resources, and so our ask is for capital funds, so it would be a one-time ask. Our goal is to have a model that allows us to reduce our current staffing costs. Right now, we're currently staffing 3 different locations, so we're staffing kind of our administrative side, the portion of the building where we're also doing some groups such as art therapy, those kind of things. So we have a building in place for that. We also have a women's shelter that we're staffing and a mid-barrier men's shelter. So for safety of clients and staff, we have 2 staff, for example, at the women's shelters, 2 staff at the men's shelter providing 24/7 care. Being in one building would allow us an opportunity to reduce those staffing levels. So for example, right now we have 4 staff 24/7. In each location, we would have 2 staff that could go up and down on the floors as needed and staff the building that way. So it would be substantially reducing our costs. The other way that it would reduce our costs is obviously we wouldn't have a separate building for administrative staff. We would be all right there in one building. So for us, that allows us to have a sustainable model. We do have a consistent history of fundraising in the community. We've also begun to diversify our funding resources, such as working with the Mental Health Board to secure funding for our case management team, for example. And so we do believe that we would be able to execute with these funds and have a one-time ask for capital needs and continue the operation of the shelter beyond that. So we do have a history of serving the homeless community. We have 12 years of experience of that in the Champaign-Urbana area. We do have experience executing COVID funds. Last year, we were the recipient of COVID funds to execute the low-barrier winter emergency shelter, which we did through December to April last year. And obviously, we did all of the reporting with that, and were able to do that.
Okay, we'll begin questions. Sweet. You've asked for $4.4 million for pre-development and construction. What is the cost for sustaining an operation at this facility?
I think we're looking at and evaluating what that would be. We do believe we would be able to substantially reduce the cost that we're currently seeing, and I don't know if you want to say more about the.
I'm Tammy Lemke, just a consultant working with See You at Home. We anticipate currently this year's budget will be 1.9 million.
I'm sorry.
1.9 million when we operate in 3 different locations. It's very difficult to staff. We expect, based upon projections that we did for 4 years that were in your grant application, that when we are done and in one building, we can cut that cost about $400,000. So we would be about 1.5 million. And so instead of needing additional resources, we feel we'll need less resources. And See You at Home has had a history of being able to fundraise in this community about the tune of about 900,000. And so it provides us with a sustainable model going forward.
How, you're talking a 4-story building, how many people would that serve or house?
So we're looking at about 40 individuals that we would house, and part of the reason, obviously 4 stories sounds like a lot, but we are trying to give people an opportunity to not be in a congregate environment. And again, that top floor would literally be efficiency apartments where people could actually practice the skills that they have gained, hopefully through going through the system, or some people will come in with a certain skill set for sure. But that top floor, for example, would be an efficiency apartment.
In your packet, you will see that there is a 4-story concept design by the architects created. It's about 25,000, 26,000 square feet, depending on how you do it. The first floor would be administrative and case management team, as well as a communal kitchen and communal opportunities for peer-to-peer support. It's important, as I think our individuals before us said, is to build that community of people who support you to be able to move up. This first floor will be a series of 16 non-congregate rooms in series of pods. So here again, an opportunity for building community within individuals. The building can be, you can take out one of the floors, right? That was the key of the concept design that we presented. If all resources aren't being able to secure for the building, we can take out one of the floors and still operate the program as it is. If that does happen, though, we go from operating 40 people to less. The 40 number comes up with is historically in our community, we've had the need for 100 beds between low and mid-barrier, and the Stride Shelter is able to serve 60, and so the gap in the community is 40, and so that is where that concept design is coming from.
Could you explain more about the location, or could it also be an existing building?
I think it absolutely could be an existing building, and I think that's part of what we want the pre-development work to help us assess, and what we want to come, again, to individuals such as yourselves and other community members to really make sure we're in the right location.
So the estimates on the construction are based on square footage alone, not whether it's to be built or to be purchased or rented?
It is based upon the best of our knowledge from our architect from Farnsworth Group is helping us develop those concepts. If you take the 25,000 some odd square foot building, we're estimating $200 a square foot. And the building can either be up or flat, right? You can take the concept design and move it around. And the great thing about a concept is you can move the things. The issue would be is the size of the rooms that you see in your packet are our estimate of what the size of the room should be for those that are in mid-barrier 1 or 2. The efficiency size of that room is what's on the top floor, which is our estimate of best practices of what that size should be for someone in those rooms. So the size of them are already there. You can flatten it in one floor. Some of our concerns about, as Melissa said, is some of our concerns about taking an existing building and rehabbing it. It's very difficult to get true trauma-informed spaces by taking an existing building and making it work for you. As we have worked through the system for the last couple of years, it's very difficult. Even like the size of the hallways are extremely important when somebody is agitated and escalated in their needs, and the hallways are smaller. It creates a lot of different unique situations for people to help to calm themselves down or de-escalate. And so the building is created with that design in place. I believe working with the University of Illinois design team in order to do the best thing that we can for individuals, to have them go through that process even quicker.
Do you have other outstanding grant applications, and if so, what's the total amount that you're asking from other agencies?
So for the building design itself, we do not have outstanding grant applications, but for the operational costs, we have, like, for example, the mental health board that we're working with, but for the building itself, we don't have any outstanding applications.
We do have a $300,000 capital grant that we can leverage as part of this opportunity. We have confirmed with Department of Commerce that it will be available for use. We also are committed then to raising the additional dollars for that. We have talked to several funders and are really interested in this opportunity.
Piggyback Mary Alice's question. So you haven't applied for Champaign County's ARPA funds or City of Champaign's ARPA funds for this?
We have applied for other operational costs, but not for the cost of the building. We would do, as Tammy was talking about, we would do our capital campaign, essentially our own fundraising to work alongside the monies that we would get from this grant.
So the programs, the
I'm
applications.
sorry, your time's up.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next presenter is Cunningham Township Supervisor's Office, Bridge to Home.
I might,
Okay, you may
good
begin.
evening. I might cough, but I tested negative for COVID. We've got the RSV going around. So if we could do next slide. First off, thank you for your time and putting 4 nights into this. I applaud all the applicants and the many high-quality housing proposals. Cunningham Township is a public agency accountable to residents. Our long-term goal is to end homelessness and hunger in our community. We're asking for approximately $1.2 million over 6 years, about $200,000 per year, to build out the capacity of Bridge to Home, providing support for homeless residents from unsheltered status through emergency housing, transitional housing, and support into permanent housing. If fully funded, here's what we can achieve together, and portions of this are built. We have 7 different funding sources and 16 community partners, which we'll outline. We will have a robust street outreach program to help move homeless residents into safety, school outreach to provide safety nets for families preventing homelessness as well as responding to it. This is especially important to get at the invisible homelessness. Emergency housing, we're looking at 12 units for literally homeless families and residents with disabilities and risk factors staying in congregate shelter, including LGBTQ residents. The same number in transitional housing, 3 to 12 months of support with rent, utilities, and housing stabilization with rent. Rapid rehousing, rental assistance, which would be 1 to 4 months of support for residents who are homeless or at risk of homelessness, particularly for many families who reach out to us needing support. Housing navigation and supportive services, which is a new and expanded program to support locating and moving into housing, as well as services to stay stably housed.
So the Cunningham Township is currently partnered with 16 organizations. We are also an entry point on the coordinated entry for the homeless system, as well as a member of the executive committee of the Continuum of Service Providers to the Homeless. So we also work with the Champaign County Housing Authority that works with our rental assistance program, as well as providing housing vouchers for all of our housing programs. The Champaign-Urbana Public Health District, so we connect residents with services and resources to maintain their well-being. The Champaign County Healthcare Consumers to give direct service to public aid, as well as the Urbana Mass Transit District to provide low-fare rides to members of the community. We also work closely with the Champaign County Regional Planning Commission, and along with our organization, we are 2 of the organizations providing rental assistance currently in Champaign-Urbana. And the Channing Murray Foundation, we work closely with for our Bucket Brigade program, which is a food pantry delivery program for residents who may be experiencing immobility and food insecurity. We also work closely with the City of Urbana, and we promote their programs and organizations and resources as well. See You at Home, we work closely with their case managers to provide their residents and participants with general assistance programs through our organization. We also refer residents to the State of Illinois Department of Human Services for their resources as well, and we get referrals from the Urbana School District to connect with homeless families.
Thank you. So there's 3 requests. The first is facilities improvements and costs. All of the costs are related to safety, accessibility, and energy efficiency. We are asking for essentially, we've applied to HHI for case management support for 2023, and we would thread that with ARPA dollars from you, 2024 and 2020 through 2026. That's a slight revision in our timeline. We essentially have a number of staff members who are supported in other ways. Let's see. And third, rental assistance. We think rental assistance is key to making these pieces work. It's the best approach for health, education, outcomes, and public finances is to keep people in their homes rather than allowing them to become homeless. 2/3 of our referrals to the school need RA to move out of unstable situation, and they tend to need 1 to 4 months. And as I have shared with you as the town board, we are seeing 4 times the rental assistance last year and this year as we have seen in the past. So we will be out of rental assistance dollars in February. The Bridge to Home is a product of 5 years of research and work to fill local gaps. Please see our timeline attachment that details this. But essentially, this is going to fill key gaps in rental assistance personnel and facilities. I want to speak a little bit about our team. We're a diverse and committed, trained team of 14 staff and 6 interns, nearly all with direct lived experience of public aid or homelessness. We have some of the highest success records of placement and housing in the county. And I'll speak to sustainability. You may have this question, and if I'm out of time, I can continue with the question. So essentially, right now, we're looking at city and county ARPA dollars and HHI dollars and CTSO. Okay, so you can ask me the question about sustainability, and I'll answer it. Thanks.
Great. Just make sure you're finished with your presentation.
Yes, I'm
Okay,
finished. I'm out of time, but.
Great, okay.
Well, that is my question, especially as it relates to the personnel that you've listed that you'd want to add.
Yeah, so essentially now we're asking for city, county, and HHI, and we're also contributing. I want to be clear that we're asking for 3 FTE to add to our program. This is from all the different sources, so we go from 5.5 to 8.5. but only 2 would be permanent. We believe rental assistance will wind down as COVID winds down. So really, that's an ARPA kind of COVID-specific request. Secondly, we will be replacing 8 hotel rooms that we have, saving nearly $460,000 over the course of this time. So that will help us to basically, if we can move into a permanent housing situation, we would get out from under those hotel costs. Our levy was increased. We're also looking at renewal of ESG dollars and prospecting CJA and ISB dollars. Those are Education and Criminal Justice Authority dollars. We are working with our Housing Authority partnership to essentially not operate or property manage housing, but to provide services. And we'll be looking at the NOFA through the continuum of care. So, and at any point, I can provide a complete budget of the entire Bridge to Home over the 5 years and what that looks like. So to be clear, the portion that we're asking for from you is a portion of emergency housing, RA, and administration, and all of the transitional housing for those 3 years. These are all expansions or matches with ESG, and that street outreach, school outreach, rapid rehousing, and housing navigation and supportive services are not being asked for from you. So we're not asking for all of our staff. It's actually a small portion of the staff expansion that would be used for this. It just happens to be over those 4 years.
So you're budgeting $390,000 for rental assistance. How long would that last? Like, how many people would that serve if this is the only source of rental assistance?
Yes, so we're expecting 100 households a year for 2 years, and then, is that right? No, yes, 100 households per year for 2 years, and then half of that in the next year. So we're believing that we're in a peak phase of rental assistance needs, and that as the economy stabilizes, we'll be able to go down to our regular amount, and we'll basically taper off and back into our general rental assistance.
Could you explain some of the COVID impacts and if there's still a higher need for housing services because of that?
Absolutely. So essentially, what we saw with COVID impacts is we have a service economy that undergirds a lot of our economy. We see 2 layoff periods per year. During COVID, that was exacerbated by quarantine and COVID. Now it's actually being exacerbated by RSV, the flu, and the other layers that actually, I think, are part of the package of being in a pandemic and having masked. So we essentially see people living paycheck to paycheck. So if they're not able to work and they don't have PTO, they don't have their sick time because they're working service industry jobs, they get behind on rent. So many of the people that we're serving, almost all of them have been impacted by COVID disruptions with the rental assistance in some way.
Can you talk a little bit about in the facilities and improvement costs? It mentions improvements for accessibility. Can you talk a little bit more about what those would look like?
Absolutely. So we would like to be able to have 8 units in total between transitional and emergency housing that are accessible. That would mean roll-in showers. It would mean that folks have access to the stoves from the front rather than in the back. There would be handles where they could push so they don't have to have full articulation of their hands. There would be lights that flash so that somebody who's hearing impaired would be able to hear if they were, if somebody was at the door and was ringing the doorbell. So there's kind of a host of accessibility improvements, and our dollars are based on the accessibility improvements that the city has done to its transitional housing. So we believe they're fairly consistent with what we would expect at our units.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to match your request for the facility improvements and then also your transitional housing new program. I don't know if those are in alignment where the changes in facilities would be for the transitional housing, or if you're proposing to get another type of property to provide this?
So right now we are asking for fairly minimal capital costs because there are a number of different opportunities we're pursuing. And so we expect if we have capital needs outside of, we're asking for safety accessibility and energy efficiency renovations to our existing property, and we've asked for $150,000 towards a new property, regardless of the location. That obviously isn't going to cover property acquisition, and so we've already been in conversation with the county, and we intend to speak to the county about property acquisition and additional renovations. So we basically decided, because there's so many balls in the air in terms of property location, we'd like to request ARPA dollars more around staffing and the renovations of the building we currently have.
With the understanding that homelessness is kind of a fluid situation between Champaign and Urbana, does your programs, would you say, mostly help residents of Urbana, or is it all over the place?
Yeah, good question. So it depends on the funding source. So the funding source determines our service area. Bridge to Home is generally a Champaign County-wide program. There are a few things that are funded only by the tax levy, and those are Urbana-specific.
Time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next proposal is Habitat for Humanity of Champaign County, first-time home ownership counseling.
Hello, thank you for having me this evening. I'm Chad Hoffman, Executive Director at Habitat for Humanity of Champaign County. Just a little bit about what we do before I jump into the counseling piece of our program. We do build affordable homes in the community, multiple throughout Urbana. We're split about evenly over our history between Urbana and Champaign, with 124 houses built total. We do select our families based on need, and all of our families do not qualify for traditional bank financing. And typically over 100 families are applying for our 4 to 5 homes builds each year. So we know there's still a huge need for low-income home ownership, and not a lot of units being added on the home ownership side throughout our community. In terms of our counseling program, that's a big piece of what we do. We are a HUD-certified counseling agency. We do ensure that our families get substantial counseling, so not only those families that go into Habitat homes, but other low-income families that are buying homes for the first time are able to go through our counseling program. We make sure they understand savings, make sure they understand saving for emergency specifically, so if they are buying a home, they know they are now in charge of replacing the roof if there is an issue. If they need to get a new appliance, they need to have a fund set aside to do those things. So we work very closely with all of our families that we counsel. In addition, we work even more closely with those families that are moving into Habitat homes. In Urbana, we will be building 3 homes next year, and all those families will go through our home counseling program, which includes 10 group classes, individual monthly counseling, and then a HUD certification counseling session as well. In total, we expect at least 12 Urbana residents will become first-time home buyers through our home counseling. That qualifies them for down payment assistance that they wouldn't qualify for otherwise. We assume that's actually much more than 12. That's just the actual number we can track. We have done over 150 families last year. We were very conservative in our estimate and just saying over 100 families. That counseling sessions are usually split evenly, and obviously if you've gone through a home ownership counseling program, you're anticipating to buy a home in the near future. We prepare families for the responsibility of home ownership. Most of our families none of our families have purchased homes before. They're first-time home buyers that we work with. Most of their family members have not owned homes previously either, so there is quite a bit of learning curve to move forward into home ownership. They do not qualify for traditional financing typically, those into our program, and we do get them that HUD certificate that allows them to qualify for Down Payment Plus, IDA grant programs, and other things that help lower their payment that makes it be affordable to move into home. Without that counseling, without that certificate or the support, they wouldn't be able to manage the payments based on being a low-income status. Again, we're HUD certified counseling. We've managed that program for several years. We're a CHODO, so we've managed that program as well. We're also getting grant funding from United Way and IDA across the board. So we have been able to follow guidelines. We are able to meet the terms of the grant. Our ask is small in comparison to many of the other asks throughout the evening. We're just requesting $50,000 to continue to support our home ownership program. We've asked for those funds to be for a single year, but we obviously could use that over multiple years as well. With that, I'm open to questions.
So it's, you basically think that it's just about 50,000? Oh, I'm sorry. I just noticed people talking, so I thought I could actually ask a question.
Our first person to ask a question is Chandra.
Chandra, I'm sorry, Chandra.
So you mentioned it was 1 year of funding, and so, how many people would that serve if, for $50,000?
So the $50,000, we'd be able to serve, we anticipate serving 150 families. We've just estimated that at over 100 to make sure we're conservative in our estimates.
And just to clarify, this is to continue the services that you're currently providing, right?
Correct. This is a continuation of a program that we are currently providing. We've been certified, HUD certified within the last 2 years, so this is new to us, but it has helped the community greatly in having that certification. It did allow us to bring some IDA funds back into the community for mortgage assistance and rental assistance as well that wouldn't have existed otherwise easily.
And from what I see in the executive summary, it looks like you would focus this on Urbana residents only?
Right, the funding, it would be for the entire county, but the grant funding is really designed that we're supporting the Urbana residents as fully as possible. And that's the majority of where we've been building our homes recently have been in Urbana as well.
Thank you.
So your ask is about $50,000. Is that for one person, and do you have other people on staff who provide the same services?
We have one staff member providing housing counseling. So that's basically covering one position at our organization.
Mary Alice asked my question. Go ahead, Sharice.
That's okay.
If you didn't get the $50,000, what would be the consequences?
Yeah, and it is, I think, mentioned in our executive summary, but to kind of point it out, that would be pulling money away from our house builds if we don't get the money for the counseling program. That's where the donations would be pulled away from to continue the program.
Could you just elaborate a little bit more? You said that there's that focus on Urbana, but that it would be benefiting the whole county. Could you just explain that a little bit further?
Yeah, sorry if I was unclear on that. So yeah, so we hope to serve 150 families total with the funds. Typically, our breakdown of demographics is half are from Urbana, half are from Champaign, generally in terms of our service area. So you can assume that of the breakdown, 75 of the residents that we were providing the counseling to would be from the Urbana area. I think more importantly is then those that are going through the counseling, who is becoming a homeowner, and that's what we really want to make sure we're supporting, because once they become a homeowner, we think that's a permanent solution in terms of folks that are, not needing rental support any further or helping grow their community as well. Our counseling does focus on building neighborhoods and community as well. We do stress that with everyone that goes through our program, that they're giving back as part of it. Our homeowners are required to do 300 hours of community service. Some of that at Habitat, but there are other agencies they volunteer as well as part of the program.
So you mentioned that you get funding from other sources. In your application, it says 27,000 of the yearly costs are already being provided by other grant sources and partners. So would that 27,000 plus the 50,000, or are you?
Right, the 27,000 plus the 50 funds the one position, plus the materials, the books, the things that go into the entire counseling program. Not our overhead or operations or anything like that. Just the full program cost are covered by that 73.5.
Gotcha, okay.
So this would be about 2/3 of the total cost.
Mary Alice? Pass.
Basically, all my questions have been asked.
If we have a second, I'll just say thank you, and thank you to all the presentations tonight. We don't have time to say it every time, but yes, thank you for being here and everyone else here tonight.
Okay.
Great, thank you for your time.
Next up is Housing Authority of Champaign County for Steer Place renovations.
Good evening. My name is Lily Walton. I'm the Executive Director for the Housing Authority of Champaign County. And I also have Vincent Andujo, our Construction Projects Manager for the Housing Authority of Champaign County. And we want to discuss the Housing Authority's plans to renovate our senior high-rise building, Steer Place.
Yes. Good evening. The Housing Authority of Champaign County, growing and moving forward together. Our mission is to improve a quality living environment as a foundation for individuals to achieve their full potential. And the vision is to develop quality, affordable housing communities, providing opportunities and support that will maximize individual potential and enable successful transition to self-sufficiency. Oscar Steer Place. HACC will utilize ARPA funds to reduce housing costs for those who need it most. HACC's nonprofit affiliate, Oak Grove Development Corporation, will use the funds to aid in the rehabilitation of Oscar Steer Place, a 108-unit senior affordable housing project in Urbana, Illinois. The project will entail the renovation and added upgrades of 108 units, including 12 elevators, new roofing system, kitchen and bathroom upgrades, new flooring and paint throughout the units, security cameras and fob entry. Other improvements include new air quality system throughout the building, improvements to common areas on each floor to help foster communal interaction among the residents. The expected project outcomes. We expect to enhance the quality of life for those residents at Steer Place. We also look to foster greater social interaction within the residents' interaction. We also look to improve the overall health of the tenants and to provide safe, comfortable, and a secure environment. What is the lasting impact of this project? The lasting impact of this project is sustainable and affordable housing for our senior citizens in the community. After ARPA funds run out, the project will sustain itself through RAD project-based vouchers, which generate rental income for the property. Why would this project be the best use of the city ARPA funds? At HACC, we believe that housing is infrastructure. The renovation of Steer Place is the best use of the city ARPA funds because it is a long-term investment in affordable housing asset. We need to invest in the necessary upgrades for the project to help service the most vulnerable citizens in the city, which are our seniors. We anticipate that total renovation costs would be approximately $6 million. We have applied for and received approval to move forward with the low-income housing tax credit program. This funding from the city will help fill gaps that other financing will not be able to meet. Why are you so confident that you can use these funds in accordance with federal guidelines? Housing Authority of Champaign County is an established, long-standing administrator of federal, state, and local grants, including the MTW Block Grant. This year alone, HACC has been awarded over $4 million in grant funding, including HUD's Self-Sufficiency Grant, the Mainstream Voucher Program, Permanent Supportive Housing Grant, the Department of Labor Youth Build Grant, the Illinois Youth Build Coalition Grant, the City of Champaign ARPA funds, and Champaign County ARPA funds. HACC is a fiscally responsible corporation and successfully meets all federal guidelines, contractual obligations, and grant requirements set forth.
Questions? Yep. It's hard to pick. Who would do the renovations? Would it be like just a private company? Would there be help from Youth Build or some internal construction?
When we do move forward, well, today we actually receive conditional approval from IDA. And so when we do move forward, we'll bring in a general contractor. So we'll procure a general contractor, and the Youth Build program will assist with those renovations, so they get on-site work experience.
Thank you for your proposal tonight. Steer Place is in my ward, so I'm particularly interested in this. If you could give me a little more information, because I've heard from residents and families of residents about concern for safety and security. Could you tell us a little bit more about the enhancements to safety and security that would be involved in this renovation?
Yes, so our goal ultimately with the renovation is to make the building more safe and secure. It is a really old building. It was built back in the 70s, and so we will be upgrading security cameras. We've already hired security, like unarmed security on the high traffic nights, and so HACC has just been investing in upgrading our lock systems, putting security cameras where they matter the most, gutting out some of the common area spaces is what we intend to do with it, like some of the common area spaces where we traditionally find unsavory characters congregate, and turning those into more communal spaces that are open and foster a better sense of community. And of course, the security cameras and locks and things such as that. And
Thank
lighting
you.
upgrades as well.
Thank you.
Are you currently full in this location? And if so, do you have a wait list?
We do have a wait list. I believe we're at about 98% occupied at Steer Place. And so it is a building that, does have high occupancy.
Could you talk about the need to remove asbestos? Do each 108 units have an asbestos problem?
Do you want to speak on that?
Yes. After having gone through with some of our consultants, an environmental review and things of that nature, we've found that there had been some previously removed asbestos, and then the asbestos that remains, we're looking to abate that during this project.
I guess my question would be in concerning all of these renovations and remodels that you want to do, is it possible that with less of what you're asking, you'll be able to do the most significant, some of the significant? I think removing asbestos is definitely a really significant thing that needs to happen. So if you received lesser funds, what would you be able to do in addition to that, or in placement of that, if you don't get the funds you're asking for?
If we were to receive lesser funds, we would apply for different loans that would be able to help us meet the need. So we did apply for the tax credit, so we're hopeful, we're crossing our fingers that in January that we do move forward to the final round and the tax credits are approved, because that will give us a significant portion of the funds that we need to complete the renovations. And anything else or any other gap financing that we may need, we'll have to apply for loans, or the Housing Authority will contribute funds through our MTW block grant.
Okay, thank you.
Just to follow up on that, the total cost is about $6 million for the renovation. You're asking for 1.5, and you've applied for tax credits for the rest?
Yes, we estimate about $6 million, and it could be possibly more. We won't know totally until we get inside of the walls and things start to really break down. But we estimate about $6 million.
Okay, thank you.
Will any of the residents be displaced during the renovations? If you're talking about abatement for asbestos and all of that stuff, where would they go?
Our goal is to complete them by floor, and so as we have vacancies, we'll move people out, give them tenant-based vouchers to go search for housing on their own. We don't intend to displace anyone without having an option in place for them, and we do intend to do it by floor, so one floor at a time. And then as we have vacancies in other units, we'll move those people to the different units. Housing Authority will cover the cost of the move for people.
I noticed that the Steer Place is described as a age-limited or age-restricted location, and it says that age is 55. Is that the current case?
That is correct.
Nobody
HACC
under the age of
defines
55?
no one under the age of 55. We define 55 as seniors.
And has it always been 55 in that location?
It has been 55 since 2012 when we changed our move to work requirements.
Thank you.
I'm gonna pass. Go ahead, Sheree.
Could you give me an idea of the demographic of your building?
Yes, so of course it's seniors 55 and older. I couldn't give you like exact numbers, but I would say we serve primarily Black or African American individuals in that building. And I don't have the exact numbers, but I can definitely follow up with by email with those exact demographic breakdowns.
Well, I ask because I noticed that it's multifamily housing, single-family housing, senior, veteran, so out, as opposed to like just having, like so many singles. I was wondering also maybe how many families.
We don't have, so we have seniors and maybe couples, seniors and senior couples, or possibly seniors in a live-in aid, but there's not necessarily families that live in that location.
Okay, thank you.
Are these largely one bedroom?
Yes.
Remind me, okay.
Going back to an earlier question, so for folks who got moved out, would they have an opportunity to move back in if they wanted to?
Absolutely.
About going floor by floor, which I think makes sense, very creative solution. If you could explain if you have a way to handle air quality issues with construction, especially like moving asbestos out of one floor while people are living in the other ones.
Yes, our contractors who we hire, they'll be developing a plan, and so when we do get to that point, we'll share it publicly as far as how they plan to, manage the air quality in the building with the removal of the asbestos.
Great. Thank you very much. Your time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Immigrant Services of Champaign-Urbana, affordable housing for poor immigrants. Okay, you may begin.
Hi, my name's Janice Jays, and I'm here with Immigration Services of Champaign-Urbana. Our executive director, Ben Mueller, was not able to be here tonight because of illness. I just was teaching all day, so my voice sounds scratchy. But I'm a board member. My name's Janice Jays. I'm here with another board member, David Dorman, and our president, Niels Jacobson. So we're addressing a crisis in the community that is both a hidden crisis and an intensifying crisis, and that is a crisis in security for immigrant families who face a temporary disruption in their ability to pay their rent. They do not really have access to the kinds of resources that maybe other families have access to, and this has a lot of ripple effects. The reason I say it is an intensifying crisis is because a lot of the money that we have been, as an organization, making available to families during the COVID crisis is disappearing now. But many of these families work in industries that are still struggling, like the restaurant industry, or they're seasonal, like the roofing industry or the landscaping industry. And so this is something that does occur in the community very often. I say it's hidden because we don't see these families often in the normal places where families might apply for aid. What often happens is that families move in with others, or they often move into unsafe situations. They may need to divide up members of the family. And so this is of concern to us. These are the situations we hear about in our organization. One of the things you've been asking about is kind of long-term impact of the funding, and I can say if without the means to address this kind of crisis, some of the long-term impacts are it's going to affect children's school attendance, partly because families are moving, they're unstable, they need to get to know new neighborhoods, but also many of these young adults, teenagers will end up in the labor force, helping their families out. The other thing that happens is exploitation, because families might be exposed to unhealthy housing situations that they would not have chosen if they had been able to stay in their own family, in their own home, I mean. And of course, there are physical costs of moving, the loss of objects, the loss of security of your children, the emotional costs that we can't really measure. So that's what we would like to address.
And I would like to talk about why ISCU is the best organization to address these issues. The purpose of ISCU is to help newly arrived immigrants transition from dependency to self-sufficiency. Most impoverished newly arrived immigrants are hardworking and want to be self-sufficient. It's only their initial circumstances that result in their dependency. The services ISCU provides gives them the initial boost they need to be self-sufficient. Rental assistance is a key element of that boost, and that is why we are asking for this grant. But there are other elements that we also address that augment our rental assistance. All the services you see listed on the slide there are part of ISCU's holistic approach. Free household goods and furnishings, employment assistance, ESL assistance, transportation, mental health and social work counseling, and a host of other services. It is ISCU's holistic approach to fostering self-sufficiency which will make the money provided by this grant so important and so effective in helping our newly arrived immigrant residents be productive members of Urbana.
Yes, so I hope you have recognized that the need is very, very great, and it is one of the least recognized needs in this community, because a lot of our immigrants, our poor immigrants, are sort of flying under the radar. People are not so aware of their dire situation. And so we think that both with our experience, we have already given more than $170,000 in rental assistance since the beginning of the pandemic. Both of our experience and this tremendous needs is a good fit to project that forward to massive more rental assistance. As rental assistance largely dries up, we're very helpful and very hopeful and grateful that Cunningham Township is also applying for this, and we hope to work together with them, as with other community organizations. In order to achieve optimal outcomes in providing rental assistance to Urbana's immigrant communities, we will implement the following process. Create a new electronic ISCU rental assistance application form, communicate with various immigrant communities about the availability of rental assistance, send the application form to those who ask for rental assistance, get in touch with the applicants to offer help with filling out the form, inform them about the supporting documentation required, verify the truth of the information in the application, then approve or reject the application. Process the check for the landlord, mail with a receipt to be signed and stamped return envelope, enter the case in the rental assistance database on the Charity Tracker software that we're also asking for funding. An experienced community health navigator will dedicate her position to this work. We will closely cooperate with other charitable organizations.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's time for questions.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Thank you. And we begin with James.
Hi, thank you. My question is, if you could address a little bit more about the sustainability or the persistence of what you've put here after the ARPA funds are gone.
Well, there's two aspects to that. One aspect is that when an individual family is helped to be self-sufficient and to be productive, that family is part of a very tight-knit community of immigrants, and they help other immigrants. So every family that becomes self-sufficient increases the community's self-sufficiency. So the dollars that you spend on rental help in the beginning will enable the community as a whole to be self-sufficient. And this is what every immigrant community has gone through in this country. The other aspect, of course, is additional funding to continue helping those newly arrived immigrants who can't get support elsewhere. And ISCU has been extremely successful in raising money, and Niels could provide more figures than I could.
Yes, this year we've already received funding from the county board for an ARPA grant. We're using that for mental health provision. This is a totally brand new thing. We've received a grant from the United Way. We've received our largest grants from the Illinois Public Health Association dealing with COVID mitigation, not only in Champaign County but also in Vermilion and what's the county to the south of us? Douglas County. We also received a grant from the Champaign-Urbana Public Health District, from the East Central Illinois Community Foundation. So we are successful at getting grants, and we will apply again. We know that the county board has not yet decided on how to spend funds on housing, and they know that we're going to come with a housing proposal. So those are some of the sources that we are thinking of, and we also want to work together with others. We were very helpful, very thankful that Cunningham Township is also applying for rental assistance, and we clearly will work together with them as well.
Thank you.
That was kind of my question, which is, Champaign County, Cunningham Township already has kind of a system already set up, part of what you're talking about. Have you talked with them about some kind of outreach that you have in your community and being able to partner?
Yes, we are in touch with Cunningham Township. We've worked together with them, and I believe we've also drawn on their rental assistance funding, and we will continue to do so. What you need to know is that since about mid-2022, rental assistance funding coming from the federal government and the state government have severely dried up. I mean, there was a huge increase in need because of COVID. We are not as optimistic as Cunningham Township that it will drop down for our specific population when COVID is over. We think it will continue because our population cannot get a lot of the jobs that other people can get. And so their insecurity, and thus their housing insecurity, will continue on a very high level, we're convinced. So as I said, we're very happy to work with Cunningham Township. We also have a lot of experience, as I mentioned. We've helped more than 150 families with rental assistance already since April 20, but we think that more is needed, and so that's why we're hoping that you can support this.
This is not my argument, but it's an argument that I know you probably deal with a lot, and that is the pushback that these immigrants that you serve are illegal. They're not supposed to be here. They're undocumented. They have crossed the border illegally and don't deserve any funding or any benefits or anything like that. Could you address that kind of crazy argument?
Well, first, I would address it from the point of view of the children. These children are our future in the community, and I think that, thinking about their situation of having a stable home, of not being asked to work on someone's roof, not to work at a restaurant till 2 a.m. because they're worried about their family not making the rent. And I think that there are other opportunities that are available to people who can produce certain kinds of documents, and it's true that other people might have a little bit more difficulty accessing things, but I think I really think about it from a future investment perspective.
Without immigrants, the population of Champaign-Urbana would be shrinking.
Another Another aspect is that
I'm sorry,
undocumented
your time is up.
does not mean illegal.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is North Point Development Corporation for Prairie Ridge
Just a quick
Apartments.
question, Madam Mayor, when is the break scheduled for?
Would you like to take a break, Ryan?
Yeah,
Okay.
this is 7 of 14, right? So
Okay.
that was 7 of 14.
10-minute break?
Please.
Okay. Okay, we'll begin again with North Point Development, Prairie Ridge Apartments.
Awesome. Thank you very much for the time. Good luck to your selection. Got a lot of work to do. My name is Lane Manning with North Point Development. I'm here to talk about Prairie Ridge Apartments. It's located at 1603 East Washington and 1001/1003 South Lerman, Urbana, Illinois. North Point Development is very excited to present an application to the City of Urbana requesting $800,000 of ARPA funds for our Prairie Ridge Apartments development. This new construction development will provide 40 apartments for households of all ages at the 30, 50, 60, and 80% AMI or area median income. The proposed unit mix is 15 one-bedroom, 15 two-bedroom, and 10 three-bedroom units. If everything goes to plan, this should be the first 9% tax credit development awarded to the City of Urbana since 2015. Prairie Ridge Apartments presents a unique opportunity for the City of Urbana to support new, high-quality, affordable housing development that emphasizes the health and well-being of its residents. With its proximity to Urbana's planned comprehensive indoor health and wellness facility, building a health-centric community is one of North Point's top priorities. This development will feature thoughtful amenities, including a fitness center, playground space, and a community room. The building will be certified under Enterprise's Green Building Program and include large units that feature in-unit washer dryers, luxury vinyl tile flooring, high-speed internet hookups, ceiling fans, walk-in closets, stove, ovens, microwaves, and garbage disposals. Prairie Ridge Apartments will redefine what affordable housing means to the City of Urbana. Prairie Ridge Apartments will be built as a public-private partnership between North Point Development, the City of Urbana, Champaign County Housing Authority, and the existing neighbors. This will include the City of Urbana donating the subject property, a comprehensive community engagement process, low-density buildings that align with the existing infrastructure and accommodate various families of all sizes. Urbana residents and employees with local businesses will be prioritized in the lease-up. Deploying the Move to Work, a project-based voucher program to assist very low-income households, and 8 units dedicated to IDA's statewide referral network, targeting households at 30% AMI level with the head of the household who has a disability, illness, including physical development, mental limitation, substance abuse disorder, HIV/AIDS, homeless, or at risk of homelessness. Financing for the project will include federal tax credit equity generated from the sale of 9% low-income housing tax credits, Illinois affordable housing tax credits, permanent financing from Legacy Bank and Trust, soft financing from the Illinois Housing Development Authority, local City of Urbana financial assistance support, and deferred developer fees. If I did this right, I got about 3 minutes left. This first slide, I don't want to take a ton of time. North Point Development, we've been in the affordable housing space since 2010. Just counted up for another presentation. We have just over 2,000 units of affordable housing under management as of today. The last sentence of the second paragraph is the one I kind of want to focus on this slide with the time it's allowed. 100% of our housing credits awards received by North Point have been moved forward into quality housing developments. We get the job done. Most of the time it's at a profit. Sometimes it's just for practice, but we get housing units in your community to benefit those residents, whether it be workforce or seniors. This is a small glimpse of the project elevation view. The top right and bottom left images on the right, that will be the top image there. The cottage style or ranch style houses, individual entrances, those are the 3-bedroom units. They'll also have private garages. And then the 2-story building in the middle, that'll be represented by the bottom left image, what it would look like in that location. 78 parking stalls, playground space, again, amenities with everyone. We're really excited to be next to this Urbana Health and Wellness campus that they're planning. I put this slide in just to give you an idea. A lot of people don't understand what affordable housing looks like. This is kind of a slide I want to put in there for Champaign County, what 30, 50, 60, 80% incomes would look like. The 60 to 80%, you can kind of look at that. That's your teacher, your police officer, nurse. Most people here, and I understand there's a big need. It isn't all over the country. In most cities, there's a big need for affordable housing, especially for that missing middle and that bottom middle class. So that's what we'd be providing to the city of Urbana. Images here, the two on the bottom right are two projects called the Limerick that we just got done. You can see it's contemporary looking, trendy colors, trendy fixtures. The three on the outside and the bottom left are another project called Prairie Creek, not to be confused with Prairie Ridge, that we just got finished up. They look just like this: quartz countertops, luxury vinyl plank flooring, free internet, in-unit washer and dryer, Maytags. So really high quality product that we're going to be bringing to the city of Urbana. Again, last slide, just kind of affordable housing and the health and wellness. Affordable housing community focused on health and wellness. Low density design with large units, enterprise green community certification. We love the proximity, again, I can't say it enough, to the Urbana Health and Wellness Facility, and resetting that neighborhood, resetting that area to be a health and wellness focused. Then down some of the amenities, playground will be community at large, dedicated bus stop. The 3-bedroom units will have individual entrances and attached garages, storage lockers, in-unit washer, dryer, stainless steel appliances, free internet, on-site professional third-party management, and all that in a non-smoking environment. With that, I'll open up for questions.
Does it go back to me? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And it looks like you have a variety of different kinds of financing items here. I'm wondering if North Point has any equity in the development. Will they have any equity?
Sure. So one of the things I mentioned, that deferred developer fee. So the affordable housing space, you can never get it all. There's always gaps, right? So this is the big request here is the gaps. I was ready for one of you to ask why we're asking now when we're not going to apply till February, because we don't know when we'll get you can't apply for this after we've applied for the tax credits, right? So with the combination of IDA, their funding, soft debt, perm debt, this will fill a gap. We always have gaps. The three variables: construction costs, interest rates, and labor are three variables that we have a hard time in the affordable housing space controlling, because by the time you apply and actually get this done a year later, the world typically changes in one way or the other. So to answer your question, yeah, we have some investment in this. That's our deferred developer fee to get this started, which is the variable that will move if we don't get this money. It's also the variable that we can keep or use somewhere else if we do get the money. Make sense?
Well, you should know that some residents in that area are not happy that they're losing their garden.
I've heard this.
And we've told them that maybe working with you, we might establish a little bit of green space in that area. So I guess, is it us imposing 78 parking spaces on your 40 apartments, or, or is there a way to lessen the parking and create some green space?
Sure. So to answer your question, yes. One of the things that we do for the next year, so if everything goes to plan, we apply at IDA in February, you'll find out in June, and then if it's beneficial, you got that time to sell your credits. So about a year now, is when we hope would be to be in the ground. In that year, you gotta go through the whole citywide process. Generally, the parking spaces are designed by ordinance. So
Right.
X amount of space needs so many parking per unit or something of that nature. Could that be amended? Of course it could. Could we make some room for a garden? Of course we can. It's still at that variable stage right now, right? But yeah, we could totally do that if they wanted to. And I've heard the complaints about the garden going away, but gardens don't generate tax revenue though.
I'd like to ask what would happen if you got less funding than what you're asking?
Again, we change the developer fee, find a different grant. There's all kinds of different ways to skin the affordable house cat, to put it simply, right? This is an ask. This would help us fill a gap, but we're generally accustomed to getting to that point where we've been awarded the credits and having to fill a gap. The question is, how big is the gap we got to fill?
Can I ask one more?
No.
Just so I understand, I believe I read in the application the total project was approximately $19 million for the two sites combined.
Correct.
And if the $800,000 isn't available, it would you'd fill the gap somehow. some other way. It
So-
wouldn't be that you would remove something from the proposed project.
Maybe. Again, that's one of the ways, right? We can also add density. So one of the things we did reduce density a little bit because staff liked the idea of that ranch-style cottage. And that's a little more of expensive product to build. So to get to that, product, we reduced density a little bit. So we took some units out. We could always maybe add some units in, change the way the building looks. I mean, again, there's all kinds of different ways to skin it. I don't know how to answer that question until we don't get it, right? Hopefully we will.
Okay.
But we will get to the finish line in some way, form, or fashion. Worst case scenario is just a bigger loan, which we don't really want to do, but it's all about making those numbers work based on what you have coming in income-wise,
Okay,
rent-wise.
thank you.
Can you clarify the completion date? Because with this being ARPA money, right, it's supposed to be addressing pandemic-related impact, right? So can you talk a little bit more about the completion and why ARPA is appropriate for this project at this time?
So you mean the completion date, so like when we would,
When would people be able to move in?
oh, sure. So realistically, it'd be now, next year, a year from now, right? That'd be the goal, if everything falls into place. Generally, depending on, IDA's pretty good about being on time with their awards and whatnot. Why I think it's a great use, it's affordable housing. We're adding affordable housing to a great community. We're getting 2 parcels that are maybe underserved or underused, getting them on your tax roll, generating revenue. Like I just mentioned, the 30, 50, 60, 80% AMI are usually the most important parts of a community. We're providing housing for them.
I noticed it said Henry Brothers. Is that a local contractor?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Did you say that if you were awarded this ARPA funding and the tax credit or other stuff didn't go through for this project, then this money would go to another North Point development? Or could you
You'd-
clarify that?
You'd be able to reallocate it. So the tax credit world, we apply for the tax credits in February. You find out in June if you have them or not. If you win them, then we go forward, move the project forward, and if you award us ARPA funds, that covers one of our gaps. If we don't get the credits, you guys can reallocate, because I'm assuming there's a process here. You're gonna have a winners 1 through 5. If someone falls through, you can just move that money to the next project. That's what's happened to us in the past, if we can't get something done. Or we've won that way usually. We didn't win or got awarded. Does that make sense? Is that a hard stop, or?
Yep.
Was that the end of questioning? That seemed very short.
Yes, it was very short. Question me more.
That was 12. Wow, that went quickly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nope. Last time I did, so.
Next up is Housing Authority of Champaign County for the single-room occupancy project.
Hello again, I'm Lily Walton, the Executive Director of the Housing Authority, and this time I have Tamika Couch, our Deputy Director, and we want to talk to you about a proposed single-room occupancy project.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to bring this project before. We're going to first just talk about the need for the affordable housing. Out of Reach 2021 is a national report co-released by the Housing Action Illinois and the National Low Income Coalition. This study highlighted a serious concern for housing advocates across the state of Illinois. The report outlines, prior to the pandemic, there were only 37 affordable and available rental homes for every 100 renter households with extremely low incomes. And this was across every state and almost nearly every county in the United States. We lacked an adequate supply. As a result of the shortage, 85% of extremely low income renters could not afford their rent, and 70% were spending more than half of their income on housing costs. Extremely low income households account for only 25% of all renters, yet they account for 72% of all severely housing cost burden renter households. The chart where it shows about the facts about Illinois. Well, I know some of the minimum wages have increased. Again, this is a study from 2021. But the minimum wage is just saying if someone made minimum wage, they would have to work 80 hours per week in order to afford a 2-bedroom unit. And so that's really just looking at like 2 full-time jobs. The COVID-19 pandemic further exacerbated the need for affordable housing since low-income wage earners struggle to find affordable housing in both good and bad times. However, in economic downturns, the demand for lower-cost housing increases as distressed homeowners and renters in more expensive units seek cheaper housing. Therefore, without a sufficient supply of affordable housing, low-income households are more directly affected. The single-room occupancy project will help fill the gap for the need of permanent, safe, and affordable housing for the housing insecure and severely housing cost burden. The single-room occupancy project will allow provide 40 to 60 additional units of affordable housing that are non-age restrictive and long-term. And then we also intend to partner with service providers who can provide wraparound services to the bricks and mortar housing, and we intend to focus on the chronically homeless. After all the housing instability points are addressed, the Housing Authority, we are committed to moving clients who seek more independent housing options and either providing a tenant-based voucher or other suitable housing that we may own and manage. The Housing Authority, we have been around. We were established in 1943. And so we are a champion in the affordable housing arena for over 7 decades. As a move-to-work agency, the Housing Authority of Champaign County employs cutting-edge strategies to administer housing assistance programs, develop and/or redevelop housing communities, and engage individuals in self-sufficiency initiatives. The Housing Authority of Champaign County will utilize the ARPA funds for the acquisition and renovation of the single-room occupancy project. And then HACC will also provide subsidies for each unit to maintain its affordability and provide long-term housing security for the individuals that need it the most. In the past 5 years alone, the Housing Authority of Champaign County has invested $100 million in the construction of affordable housing developments, 5 of which will generate 174 additional units of affordable housing. The Housing Authority of Champaign County currently manages 853 units of affordable housing and is responsible for the development or management of 16 local affordable housing communities. And then just showing our fiscal responsibility, the Housing Authority of Champaign County is an established, long-standing administrator of federal, state, and local grants, including the Moving to Work Block Grant. This year alone, the Housing Authority have been awarded over $4 million in grant funding, which includes the HUD Family Self-Sufficiency Grant, the Mainstream Voucher Program, Permanent Supportive Housing Grant, the Department of Labor Youth Build Grant, the Illinois Youth Build Coalition Grant, the City of Champaign ARPA funds, and the Champaign County ARPA funds. Housing Authority of Champaign County is a fiscally responsible agency and successfully meets all federal guidelines, contractual obligations, and grant requirements set forth. And then I will open up for questions.
I believe we start with Chris.
So, I apologize for if I'm misunderstanding things here. Are we talking about building a new building?
No, we are not talking about building a new building. We're looking at acquiring a building that could be converted into single-room occupancy units.
Okay, thank
I guess my question is, why single room occupancy? Is this because of, there are so many single people that are on the verge of homelessness or have that issue, or, is it that we have, I'm thinking in terms of the single parent, with children. So I wondered about, I know there's a lot of that type of issue too with housing problems. So could you kind of give me some explanation regarding that?
Yes, we're looking at the single-room occupancy model, and again, non-age restricted, but primarily because our intended goal is to serve the chronically homeless. And so we're looking at a facility that we can serve individuals in who are chronically homeless and also provide the needed services and case management services on site for that facility, in that facility. And then we have been in early discussions about what that would look like. Will we accept families on this site, or would a portion of it be for, transitional family, a transitional family model? And so a lot of it is still in early conversations, but we have been working with the City of Urbana, Regional Planning Commission, and Cunningham Township on kind of designing a model for this.
Okay, thank you.
So that kind of leads to my question. You hear the terms transitional, mid-barrier, SRO. Which, are these three separate populations served by these three types of housing, or is there some overlap?
I think the mid-barrier is in transitional. Maybe, I don't want to speak for what CU at Home is doing with the mid-barrier, but I believe transitional can be for either families or, or for individuals who are looking to transition out. I would probably, a single-room occupancy specifically, though, this is just a concept it's just a single room, like a studio apartment, similar to a studio apartment. So just kind of teaching individuals self-sufficiency skills in a smaller setting. And then again, Housing Authority would be committed to individuals who want to transition out of that single room setting into maybe like a more independent living type of facility or independent living building to provide tenant-based vouchers once they've completed the supportive services that we intend to attach to this project.
Can you just clarify if this would be in Urbana?
Yes.
Have you applied for other funds, like with the HHI, for this type of project? Would it be eligible for that type of funding?
I believe it would be eligible for this type of funding, and we have not applied for this for the HHI.
Were you saying in your background here that you currently have 600 Urbana residents on the wait list that just had a 2-day application period?
For the Housing Choice Voucher? Yeah, back in March, I believe it was, we opened up our wait list for tenant-based vouchers with our, for the MTW wait list. And so those are the ones that, for Urbana alone, that applied.
I'll pass. My question was asked.
So this money is for the acquisition of property. There's a lot of different applications for the Housing Authority, so I couldn't pull yours specifically up. I looked up 500,000. I'm not sure if that's the amount that you guys were requesting to purchase a property.
Not to purchase, we're looking for just the needed renovations when we do purchase.
500,000 to renovate.
Yes.
Thank you.
To piggyback what Mary Alice said, have you identified some properties yet?
We have identified a couple properties.
Pass. Pass.
Is the total cost of renovation $500,000, and does that include community space other than, or is it strictly the remodeling of the rooms?
The total cost of renovation will not be $500,000, but we're looking to invest possibly some move to work dollars in it, as well as bringing in other partners who may be interested in investing in this project.
So what's the total cost of renovation?
The total cost of renovation, I believe, is around $10,000 per unit. So.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then the community spaces are a little bit different.
So say you get the funds, you acquire the property, you renovate, what's the timeline? When can people move into these SROs?
So Housing Authority, we did put it into our move to work plan. So the timeline for us looks like approval from HUD for move to work. And then we have to get the vouchers. We have to get the vouchers approved by HUD as well once we get the approval. So we intend to attach project-based vouchers to help generate income on the project and make it a long-term sustainability. And so I would say we're looking at maybe a year to 18 months out, and possibly longer before we can, organize all the partnerships and things that we need.
Anyone down here? Pass. Mary Alice?
Okay, so I guess my question is, where in Urbana have you managed to locate 40 to 60 units where they would be renovated into single room?
Okay, well, since it would be like an ongoing real estate transaction, I don't want to give the exact location.
Okay.
But it is in Urbana, and I would kind of say, I don't know, is it like north? I don't know directions.
I'm horrible when it's for north, south.
But it's kind of, it's in Urbana, I can say that. And I apologize that I can't give you the exact location.
Okay, I just thought I'd ask. Okay.
I pass.
You mentioned that there would be services provided to the folks there. What would be the plan for sustaining those services past? I'll send it.
We'll send it in. Thank you very much. Next project is the Union Development Holdings LLC for the Union at Bradley.
Good evening.
You may begin.
Margaret Plum with the Annex Group, Senior Director of Development.
Could you make sure your green light is bright? Push the button.
There we go.
That's better.
Margaret Blum, Senior Director of Development with the Annex Group. Annex is a national developer of affordable and workforce housing located in Indianapolis, Indiana. We're requesting $1.95 million to help fund a $65+ million project. And with that contribution, the Urbana community will receive the lasting impacts of a quality brand-new apartment community with many desirable amenities similar to those of market-rate apartments, targeted at an income average levels of 60% area median income or below. The community will receive affordable homes for 200 individuals or families within easy access to schools, jobs, healthcare, recreation, and retail. And that affordability would be maintained for a minimum of 30 years. Residents will get a management team that fosters connections to community resources, encourages resident collaboration in selecting ongoing supportive programs, referral services, training, and education. These programs and this community will provide residents with the support they need or desire and the stability to improve their quality of life. You know, there's several organizations on this applicant list that I think everyone would be a best use of funds. I would say that Union at Bradley would be one of the best uses of funds. You know, like so many places around the country, this market needs affordable housing for families. The existing community is currently rent burdened. Over 46% of Urbana households pay more than 35% of household income to housing. The voucher program through Champaign County maintains a waiting list over 1,000 households. Our market study that we had commissioned shows that the area is dominated by student rental. A lot of the existing multifamily that is non-student is older and of some of it of less desirable quality, and that there is a very strong demand for quality rental units of this type. There would be a long-term benefit here in that affordability would be maintained for 30 years, so this is not just a one-shot application benefit of dollars. And then we do have the know-how to do this job successfully. In addition to that, we see this development as being a catalyst for community growth, as we do all of our projects, with positive economic impacts during and after construction, whether to local business, local government, to the local economy, or to local employers. We're confident we can use these funds in accordance with federal guidelines and achieve the demonstrable results in the required time frame, because this is what we do. We have been involved with affordable housing for 15+ years. Our construction group has 20+ years in building multifamily. over 2,000 apartments, $500 million in value. We have a track record of, we have a vertically integrated team. We're not only a developer, but we're also an owner, general contractor, and a property manager, so we are invested long-term. We'll be there for the life of the project and don't just develop and walk away. We have a proven track record with dozens of projects within the past years alone where we've done development, ground-up construction of this nature, leveraging more than $10 million in grants, ARPA, township, home, and county funds. We've dealt with managing compliance with TIP programs, pilot programs, and other tax abatement similar programs. You know, we've demonstrated breadth and depth of experience in developing, building, owning, and managing successful communities. I just have here, just sharing, oh, I haven't, you know what, I haven't even been doing this on your screen here, sorry about that. Oops. There's the benefits, Union of Bradley experience. Just a few pictures of our portfolio of our more recent projects, multifamily. And then I just thought I would share, you know, again, at Annex, we see ourselves as a catalyst for growth economically and also for empowering people. You know, affordable housing empowers people to dedicate more of their money to food, transportation, and healthcare, increase their economic security, provide a stable home environment for their families. And then I've just shared some of the quotes from some of the folks involved in our communities. I'm happy to take questions.
Okay. Questions?
Are you the same people that had thought to put this development in this particular place earlier, a couple of years ago, maybe a year ago?
Yes, we had actually, that was part of a PUD, trying to get the site out of an existing PUD. And what happened was we had moved the project forward, gone through the initial application threshold phase with IDA. That was approved. We had begun moving forward to full application. And at some point in that process, I wasn't a part of this. I wasn't with Annex at the time, but my understanding is at some point in the process, IDA asked us to stop because they were concerned about competition of other projects in the market. So we had taken things fairly along and been approved and then asked to just hold. So, but it is the same site, I believe. 1208 West Bradley.
Okay.
This is a $65 million project. You're asking for $2 million. What's the funding for the rest? Where's the rest of the funding coming from?
The rest of the funding we are applying for, once again, for the low-income housing tax credit. This would be a 4% LIHTC project. So that is a non-competitive process. So we would be pursuing low-income housing tax credit funds as part of that equity, along with the ARPA funds, and then there is a portion of soft funding that IDA is offering as part of project award. And then along with that, similar to the other gentleman who was speaking about a deferred developer fee, that is part of the funding as well. And then, of course, your permanent loans.
Thank you.
Can you talk a bit about what the impact would be if this project received some but not all of the funding?
Yeah, I mean, it's, and I don't want to be redundant, but it's the same sort of thing. You know, we would look to either increase the ask for the matching soft funds through IDA, or we would increase the deferred developer fee, or we would be looking to, you know, value engineer aspects of the project that maybe we were planning to spend a little more, and maybe we can value engineer some things, or a combination of all of those things.
What's the certainty of this project? Like, are you still waiting on the tax credit or other things for a no-go, no-go?
We are pulling together the first step of the IDA application, which is the preliminary project assessment. We have a fair level of confidence since we were approved previously, the same project. So we're in the process of that. We'll get that submitted before the end of the year, and then I'm told we should know within 45 to 60 days whether we, in fact, have a project through IDA. And then from there, it would just be, trying to move ahead as quickly as we can.
So have you worked on any projects that include ARPA funds?
We have. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure which ones, but I specifically referenced that because we have.
And that's been
and it may be-
comparable to what you're asking for here?
I think it may have been more. In fact, I'm 99% sure that that is more than what we've asked for here. Mhm.
I'm not entirely positive I understand what a deferred developer fee is, but granted, since I don't understand it, perhaps my question is not valid. What is your estimate of your deferred developer fee that you are going to contribute to this project?
Let me take a look and I can tell you.
Or you could email.
It'll be somewhere between $2 and $3 million.
Okay, thank you.
Are you able to estimate the average monthly rent at this complex?
The monthly rent is determined by HUD. There's a maximum that can be pursued, and those come out every year. So I can tell you that right now that we know that they will be a significant discount to market rent, which is what they always are.
Okay, thank you.
Previously, when this development was going through, my understanding was that the rent was based on income. So based on how much you made would determine how much rent you paid. Is this the same thing that you're trying to do now?
Well, the rent is based on the AMI.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's based on an allowable amount through HUD for that AMI.
And AMI means?
I'm sorry, the area median income. So, person earning 60% of this area's median income, HUD will dictate what the maximum rents can be for a 1, 2, 3, 4 bedroom and so on.
Okay. Yeah, it was a tiered type of rent, that my understanding, based on how much a person actually made. So that's what I was asking.
Yeah, it's based on the AMI for that area.
Okay.
And just to confirm, there's 220 units. They could be either 1 to 4 unit apartments. And will they all be at 60% or below the AMI, or is that mixed income?
We're working through that right now. Our initial pro forma was including all 60% area median income, and we're actually looking at trying to provide some deeper affordability so that we have an averaged AMI of 60%.
Okay. Time's up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next project is the University YMCA New American Welcome Center, COVID Recovery for Immigrant Communities.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for listening to all of us for the next 3 nights. Really appreciate your time, and I don't know if, maybe you're JD, at least from your LinkedIn. Thank you so much for all of your really excellent coordination. So we're here tonight. My name is Gloria Yen. I am the director of the University's Y's New American Welcome Center. I'm joined today by my colleague and partner,
Lisa Wilson, Executive Director of the Refugee Center.
So at the New American Welcome Center, our mission is to make our community a place where all immigrants throughout our community, regardless of their status, can thrive and flourish. We do this by engaging local institutions, mobilizing community resources to ensure equitable access to resources, to economic opportunity, and also to meaningful belonging. We do this in a way through direct service delivery and programming, but also through the implementation of the Champaign County Welcoming Plan with our partners, and the city has played and continues to play a critical role in both of these places. The reason that we have our model set up this way is so that the micro that we engage in direct client service delivery on the ground through our multilingual helpline, through our immigration legal services, through our community navigators, for example, continues to inform our implementation of a more systematic effort to address ongoing needs in the area of language and education for our immigrant community, in the area of health and well-being, and in the area of public safety, for example, for the long term. And we believe that this multi-pronged, multi-sector approach is critical to our sustainable impact in the community. We're here tonight in front of you because we're really committed to facilitating the economic recovery of foreign-born residents in the city of Urbana who were disproportionately impacted by the COVID pandemic. Since the onset of the pandemic, we have distributed the New American Welcome Center $1.375 million in relief. This is either direct distribution or facilitating access by helping people navigate technology, pull together documentation, providing language access, etc., to help local immigrant business owners stay open, get their PPE, keep people on the payroll, and also to help people continue to be able to pay their rent and utilities and groceries, etc. The Refugee Center has been able to facilitate access to similar numbers. This is just one way that we are tackling the ongoing impact of the pandemic, direct aid as one pot. Other ways that we have been actively working is through, for example, expanding access to mental health resources that are culturally and linguistically responsive, also working on Indigenous language justice for our local Maya community as an example, and like I mentioned earlier, implementing the Champaign County Welcoming Plan. On the right side of this slide, you can see a map of clients served in Urbana by the New American Welcome Center. This year, about 1 in every 3 of our clients are Urbana residents, and we serve residents all throughout the city, but there are clustered areas that you may be able to identify in the areas of Northwood Estates and Ivanhoe Estates, south of Colorado between Anderson and South Cottage Grove, and also East Washington, west of High Cross Road. And the reason that this information is helpful for us to know is that with the wraparound services that we are able to provide, we're not only addressing whatever it is that people are calling us for, but we can do targeted outreach and ongoing engagement in the community to make sure folks' needs are met. So our proposal tonight is to really be able to continue reducing through Urbana ARPA funds housing costs for those that need it most by providing direct financial assistance for rent and utilities, because this continues to be a significant ongoing barrier to mobility, and the Refugee Center and the New American Welcome Center have been serving as trusted connectors for immigrant communities throughout the duration of the pandemic and also prior to that. In addition, what these funds will allow us to do is build capacity to increase access to affordable housing. We've heard a lot of really exciting proposals and ideas. I think there's more coming through the Housing and Homelessness Innovation program that is coming up that we are committed to working in complement to, so that, again, we are addressing things that must be addressed in the form of direct intervention right now, immediately, while also making sure that we're maintaining a long arc view with regard to sustainability. Why we're working with the Refugee Center, which is our community's longest serving immigrant and refugee organization, and also our only regional refugee resettlement entity, is because we have a really solid foundation of trust. We communicate really well together across our 2 staff teams. We serve folks in 13 different languages, and I'll pause so Lisa can add.
The Refugee Center has been around for over 40 years. We have, in FY22, we served over 2,800 unduplicated individuals. We do serve about 11 languages in-house. We've been a trusted partner to immigrants in East Central Illinois for many years. Over the pandemic, we provided about $1 million in COVID rental and utility assistance. That's important because we have the structures in place to continue that process. We are not going to have to do a massive hiring effort. We don't have to get new databases. We've done the work. We've been partners with Illinois Department of Human Services. We've had federal partners and private partners, and we have the capability and the staff to do this kind of work.
Okay, we'll go on to council questions. Thank you. And I started. We just had a presentation from the Immigrant Services Group, and they were requesting about $268,000, and you're requesting $622,000. So the two and all for rental assistance or utility assistance. So it adds up to about $890,000. Have you considered collaborating, rather than two separate organizations distributing funds? Have you considered collaborating for
So in
the same
looking at
population?
the note on their executive summary, I think they're actually asking for $756,000. So it'd be about 1.4. We have collaborated in the past and subgranted to Immigrant Services, and we are open to working together to ensure that folks have continuing housing stability.
Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about, we've heard a lot about conversations about when and if the need for tenant rental assistance might go away. What is the plan beyond ARPA for providing support?
So I think we were really strategic in the way that we mapped out our budget. ARPA is one of the few sources that we can secure direct financial assistance from. So with regard to the breakdown of our budget, about close to 75% over the course of the next 3 years is to provide housing utility assistance, because we have the infrastructure available through state and other government funding and also private entities to provide the personnel supports. And what we're really hoping to is continuing to invest in the area of most critical need to reduce and alleviate some of that burden for people so that they can invest and take more space to engage with workforce development efforts, for example, or to make different sorts of cultivation or curriculum or enrichment choices for their children, for example, that forward education. And so those are the areas of family strengthening that we continue collectively and collaboratively to push into through things like our tutoring programs, and also we are looking at different models in the Chicago area in particular of moving people into home ownership models, but that's not something that we're ready and able at this time to propose and consider, but we want to use the time and the lessons that we continue to learn through direct aid administration to build capacity for that.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I can give you an example for our Afghan parolees that arrived in the area, most of whom live in Urbana. We've conducted financial workshops that talk about rent and then moving to mortgage assistance and home ownership. Some of our Afghan evacuees are ready for that, some are not. But those are the kinds of programs that we plan to continue to move them towards home ownership and to increase their knowledge of financial literacy, which will eventually mean self-sustaining.
Yeah, another recent example is just last week we partnered with the Regional Planning Commission to do a weatherization workshop for people. So during that, also informing and educating them about the LIHEAP program, for example, and also distributing LED light bulbs and also winter, like those window cling kits.
Of the people that you've served with rental assistance and utility assistance, how many are sort of, I guess, like repeat appliers? And how do you, since this is a one-time infusion of funds, how do you help them, you sort of answered this question before, but how do you help them, not keep applying for rental assistance and make sure that they're standing on their own?
Yeah, a lot of them got really far behind with COVID. So this will be the boost that they need to kind of get even. Many of our, we're a refugee resettlement organization, but the vast majority of our clients are not refugees. They are undocumented immigrants. And they're vulnerable because they may not have employment authorization, which means they have jobs that serve, they're subject to wage theft and all sorts of terrible working conditions. So we find that they do need this kind of help to kind of get ahead. But once they stop struggling from, almost to the point of eviction, they're able to, thrive a little bit more. They're able to look for better work opportunities. We continue, both of our organizations advocate heavily for improved work authorization laws within the United States to hopefully get them the work authorization they need to have sustainable jobs. So that's what we're kind of hoping, that that between our two programs, they get skills. Right now, we're working on a great program with Clark Lindsay. They are offering to train people to get their CNAs while they're working at Clark Lindsay. And so through partnering in these sorts of collaborations, we hope to be able to give our clients the skills that they need to be, to get ahead of the rent and to eventually be self-sustaining.
We're done.
So based on your application, you are requesting funds for 4 years, and I was wondering if you had an estimate of the number of families.
It's
50
to 70 per year per organization.
Yeah.
So 100 to 120 per year?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next group is the Housing Authority of Champaign County for Youth Build.
Hello again. This time I have Siobhan Myrick, our Director of the Youth Build Program, and we'd love to talk to you about our Youth Build Program and the Bridging the Gap project.
Good evening. Youth Build is a comprehensive pre-apprenticeship program that is funded by the Department of Labor. It's for non-residential, community-based alternative education program that provides job training and educational opportunities for at-risk youth ages 16 to 24. Youth in our program will learn construction skills while constructing or rehabilitating affordable housing for low-income or homeless families in their own neighborhood. Our program components consist of 50% classroom instruction and education, 40% hands-on construction, and 10% leadership development. We believe in employability skills towards self-sufficiency. So during their tenure in the Youth Build program, participants also get the opportunity to earn the following certifications: Flaggers, Forklift, OSHA, which is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, NCCER, the National Center for Construction Education and Research, First Aid and CPR, Illinois Food Handler Certification, Smart Money Financial Literacy Certification, Anger Management Certification, and a variety of other employment-related certifications that make youth more marketable employees. And at this time, we have a 91% credential attainment for all participants in our program. Since the inception of our program, Urbana youth have found difficulty accessing the services provided by Youth Build due to the distance from their homes. This distance has not stopped the continued interest in the program, as we have between 20 to 30 Urbana students on our waiting list at any given time. The proposed project is intended to expand the Youth Build program by 20 additional youth who are exclusively Urbana residents. Under this proposal, youth will be serviced in the city of Urbana as opposed to our current location in Champaign. Our funding requests are for the following distinctions: for location in Urbana for 18 months, and that's including site, space, rental, equipment, and general operations. And then also tuition coverage for 20 Urbana youth in partnership with our Illinois Youth Build Coalition funding. And then staffing personnel for 2 essential full-time positions at our Urbana site. That includes their salary and fringe benefits. And then supportive service funding, and then post-secondary education certifications. To answer 2 questions: why is this project the best use of the city funds, and what will be the lasting impact? Young people have been hit especially hard by changes in the labor market over the past decades. Unemployment among 16 to 24-year-olds increased the most of any age group during the recent pandemic. The unemployment rate is especially high for young people without high school diplomas. Youth Build is one program that attempts to help this group through the services we provide. After ARPA funds run out, this project will sustain itself through Department of Labor and the Illinois Youth Build Coalition funding that we currently have. We are confident that we can use these funds in accordance with federal guidelines and achieve the demonstrable results in the required timeline. Again, the Housing Authority of Champaign County is an established, long-standing entity, and that includes the management of many grant funds, including the Department of Labor Youth Build Grant and the Illinois Youth Build Coalition Grant. Thank you. Any questions at this time, please? Go ahead.
Thank you. Can you talk about the sustainability of funding for the 2 staff positions you're proposing?
Yes, so we're proposing to add 2 additional staff primarily to help with recruiting and the education component. The sustainability, after the ARPA funds run out, we will utilize the Illinois Youth Build Coalition funds to sustain those, which will hopefully be an annual funding.
So this program for $400,000 will run only 18 months? Is that correct?
Over the 18 months, we're looking to, yes, over the 18 months, we're looking to serve 20 additional youth, but we want to continue to, you know, keep a location in Urbana by utilizing our other grant funds. So essentially what this does is helps us to show how our program has grown to the Department of Labor and the Illinois Youth Build Coalition. So we're able to bring in additional funds from those sources.
Thank you.
How much is your anticipated site space cost? Like if site were free, how would that reduce this cost?
If the site were free, it would probably reduce it around 100,000 over the 18 months.
So my question is about the budget. We've talked about 18 months here. The budget in the proposal has $100,000 for 2023, 2024, 2025, 2026. It's a 4-year program. So how does that work if we're hiring someone, 2 people at $50,000? How does that work over 4 years?
I don't think we intended to stretch it out over 4 years. We're looking at 18 months for this particular
so it is 18
program.
months.
Yes.
That budget is too long in the proposal. Okay, thank you.
Going along with the budget, so it looks like it would, you give $10,000 per student. If you have 20 students, it's $200,000. You're asking for $100,000. So where are you getting the 50%?
From our Illinois Youth Build Coalition grant.
Okay,
So we're combining funds that we would use. So we're committing to exclusively serving 20 Urbana residents and committing the Illinois Youth Build Coalition funds along with funds that we receive from the city of Urbana.
Thank you.
This might be beyond your capacity at this time, but are Youth Build students able ever to get into the unions?
That is a partnership that we would love to have, and we've had a couple conversations with them to try to see how we could, pipeline our students to the unions, and so we're working on that.
Yeah.
I guess what I would like to know is, what other funds or have you gotten from other entities, maybe Champaign, regarding Youth Build, and how recently?
Through the Gun Violence Reduction Blueprint, the Youth Build program received $150,000 from the city of Champaign. We just recently received $400,000 from the Illinois Youth Build Coalition, and we also got a $1.5 million grant from the Department of Labor. And so the Illinois Youth Build Coalition and the DOL grant primarily serve to maintain our staffing and pay stipends and for the educational components. And then we add an additional 15 youth with the funding from the city of Champaign, and additional 25 or so from Illinois Youth Build Coalitions.
Okay. Thank you.
What will you build in Urbana?
Affordable housing, so we'll look for projects to invest in, to the Youth Build program or the Housing Authority could purchase, and renovate projects in Urbana.
So it's building or renovating?
Yes.
Okay.
And the affordable housing will be, of course, for low-income families, and that is a requirement of our DOL grant.
So it mentioned that you'd offer supportive services for the youth as well. Is that the work of the 2 staff members you're adding, or is that so they would be responsible for, giving them like mental health support?
Resources, yes. So what we're looking for is kind of like case manager and an education coordinator, someone to help them along the education process, and completing the high school diploma and working with them to kind of overcome some of those barriers, but then also the supportive services part, matching them with resources that they need, such as child care assistance or housing assistance, mental health, anger management. And so our primary goal is to really break down the barriers that youth are facing so they can be successful.
Thank you.
And to clarify, are you saying that this ARPA money use is kind of like a pilot or startup or demonstration of expanding to Urbana that would help demonstrate success for future funding?
Yes.
Thank you.
So could the youth involved in this, if we funded this and the single occupancy project, could they be working on the single occupancy project?
Absolutely. That's our goal with any housing authority project, to get our youth exposed to the construction. That's our primary reason for having the Youth Build program and the work that the housing authority does to be able to get them on the work sites.
Okay, thank you.
So digging in there a little bit, if they're working at a work site, the location that you're looking for, is that like a place to have training? Is that, what is the use of the space that you're?
The use of the space is, the ultimate goal of it is for it to be housing. And so the youth do train there, but generally we either bring in our construction manager to do the training, or we bring in a contractor, and the youth shadow. Part of the agreement with the contractor is that the youth have to shadow the work, and they train the youth to do it.
With these funds that you're talking about, and I understand how important skills are. I guess one of my questions would be, the skills that you are doing the youth build, that the youth build participants seem to get, other than forklifting, heavy equipment, some kind of credential with that. I would think that, do you have any plans of bringing in plumbers, electricians, or those kinds of skills, carpenters, where they can make like real money? And of course, they would also have to know real math. But, do you have any plans for bringing someone in to provide those particular educational services?
Yes, we do, and the construction certificate that they earn kind of goes over like general carpentry, and so that's one of the core credentials that they're getting from the Youth Build program. But we have also explored, and we have had some early conversations with bringing in some different trades and exposure to that, but that may be down the line to actually earn a certificate or something in a different trade.
Okay, thank you.
No questions.
So are all the Youth Build projects 18 months, or this just particular one is 18 months?
This particular one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is Kidlytics for data science.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Karen Jenkins, the founder and CEO of Kidlytics. Kidlytics is a micro-credentialing platform that teaches data science to grades 8th through 12th and young adults 18 to 24, ingrained in critical thinking, strategic planning, and social-emotional learning. We are a national program that focuses on building a pathway to employability that's equitable. The problem that we're addressing is there's a huge disconnect between academia and industry, with 7 out of 10 jobs coming up for reskilling. Why is this a problem? Because the K through 12 education system is a top-down system where the federal level sets the math and science policies, while the state level sets the core standards. And in Illinois, our Common Core mathematical standards are minimum that do not map towards data analytics that is needed for the future of work in this fourth industrial revolution. So, how do we address this? By having stakeholders, local community members, and parents in the conversation, because without those stakeholders in industry, it does not lead to opportunity. What is our impact with our program? We're creating a new data standards that mimics emerging technology that is needed, as we've seen in COVID-19 with the word analytics. But most people did not know how to use these analytics, and most jobs are looking for these skills. We are upskilling the student by giving them access to the skills they need and the processes and systems to utilize that. By reskilling the teacher as well, because they don't have time to go out and get reskilled again and come back to the classroom. They need those industry standards in the classroom. And that return on investment will save money within school districts, within the community, and also prepare students to be employable. 84% of the jobs by 2030 are requiring data science and analytical and critical thinking skills. That's why this is the prominent time for Urbana students to learn these skills. With over 30,000 data science jobs open in Illinois, we have a chance to position students to get an average salary of $77,000 per year. What is our lasting impact? Through this program and the funds, we will be building infrastructure by connecting students with internships and jobs, with real world projects that these jobs can provide them with, and professional development. Our program is not the beginning, is not the end, it's the beginning to other higher level skills that is needed within education. Alumni become advocates of the program, telling their stories as time has gone on. They become teachers, they become employees and employers, because their future job does not exist yet, and they need the skills to build it. This is why this data science program is so important in this community, because this equity will translate when they go outside into the community, all throughout the state and wherever they go. And we'll continue development of these strategic partnerships by continuing to apply for grant funding, non-dilutive venture capitalist funding, and those sorts of funding. And we will continue to build this framework with our resources for the program's success by ensuring that we have foundation partnerships to ensure that our framework is working now and for years to come. Why are we the people to do this? Because we are the change makers. I have over 20 years of experience in primary education and higher education, from research to business practices to even over state and federal grants. I have a team that has some of the same experience. My advisors are some of the top researchers and inventors in education technology and VR. My other advisor, David, he has over 150 members worldwide in Women in Technology International that we can tap into, as well as some of my partnerships that I have been able to obtain and resources that will allow students to tap into this. Our model is where passion meets analytics education. We hope that you will fund this to ensure that students' future are secure in data analytics in this fourth industrial revolution where data is queen. Thank you.
So is this a excuse me, a pilot program, or is this something that's already established?
So we have been starting these programs for like 2.5 years. It's actually a national and a global program, but I have been focused national, even though we have partnered with global partners. So yes, it's a national program.
Could you explain your overall model? Like, is this in person, online, in the schools?
So we started in the height of COVID, so this was online. But I've had relationships where I have done some in-person events throughout the country, and with our business-to-business relationships and partnerships, we have done some in person, but not so much. As COVID is letting up, you know, we plan to have more in-person events next year.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm really interested in your goals here. But I do have some questions about the budget that you proposed. The two things involve a travel item for $54,000 and an administration item of $111,000, which is more than 10% of the total amount that you requested. So could you talk about where that travel goes and why that admin cost is so high?
So the travel is because we have some of the programs that we have that require data science. As I said, some of this emerging technology. We have a space program, and we would like to take some of the kids to some of the conferences. Because one thing, we can teach them, but if we don't expose them to these other professionals and actually let them utilize those skills where they can be seen by other employers, other programs, I don't think our outcomes would be as good as we're exposing them to directors of research for NASA and different things. How does that translate from talking to actually action? That's why that travel budget is there.
And how about the admin costs?
The admin, I'm sorry, I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I can get back to you on that question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you're saying that the money is allocated to help over 125 students in a 3-year cohort, and outreach to 1,000 students. How will you ensure that these students, between 125 and 1,000, are from the city of Urbana?
Yes, so I have a breakdown of 60 to 75% will come from Urbana, whereas we'll have 10 to 15% from around neighboring neighborhoods and throughout Illinois, then another 10 to 15% outside of the state. And I do that to ensure that we have social capital, because one thing I do believe in, if you're talking to yourself, how are we growing? So in order to, like how my program is set up, I have some at the top echelon of the economic status to the bottom, but it doesn't matter with kids, but that also builds their social capital by understanding where other programs are, talking about different things that matter as far as with data when you think about kids being civilly adapt to what's going on in the news and everything else, as far as even food disparities. The conversation that actually comes from those interactions is so valuable. So that's how I'm gonna ensure that that is going to happen. And also with that 1,000 outreach, that is from in-person events, whether that's here in Urbana, outside of Urbana as well. But those kids in the program, like I said, that 65 to 70% will be from Urbana, and I will ensure that. But this program isn't just a 1 year. I want to track these kids throughout 3 years within a program.
What's your relationship to Urbana High School and Urbana Middle School?
So I have started talks with some of them in the high schools as well as Champaign. I'm on a lot of different councils and boards as far as Governor Rural Affairs Committees, subcommittees. I'm very active local and in state, so I do kind of know what's going on, but I have been building those relationships because I know as if I am granted this money, I have to start that community outreach. That is something that I'm very good at.
How many children do you have in your program right now?
We're on break, but we're just finished. So my last cohort was with Illinois STEM, and within that space program, we did that from the beginning of fall, so throughout this whole year. So we had about 25 to 30 kids throughout the year in that program. And most of those are from this area. Most of those kids are from this area.
So you're asking for almost $1 million. What's your business model? Are you for-profit?
Yes.
Not for-profit?
Yes, I am for-profit.
You're for-profit
I'm
enterprise?
for-profit social enterprise, yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry if I missed this. Is there a cost to the students or the children who would be involved in this program?
No, any students from Urbana and surrounding areas, they will not. That's how I will also accelerate the funds in the sense of even I'm looking for other additional funding as I do grants, pitch competitions, venture capitalist funds. So a portion of that, even though we are servicing Urbana students, the other clients, as I have with my B2C customers, they will pay, but no one from this area will pay.
And is this the first time it'll be a 3-year program? The same kids will be in the program for 3 years?
Yes, and I would say I want that model too, because if we're in a local community and I make those relationships with the school, from previous experience working in these type of programs, it's just easier to see the outcomes and actually track them so they can actually get into those jobs, because we are building a pipeline for these jobs that's the most in demand across all sectors, so yes.
And what's like your data, data for completion?
So my data for completion, since we haven't had a kid to go 3 years or to map, because all my kids are across the country. So I will work with some of my partners that I have in education. As I said, one of my founders, he is one of the top leaders in education technology and VR, and they do some of this, as well as I have done some evaluation, but I will get those consultants to come in to make sure that we have a solid plan to track them over the 3 years.
And what would be the impact if there was less or no funding for ARPA? Would you be able to still continue at a smaller capacity?
Yes, with no funding, no, not the same capacity, because I need to hire people, but lesser funds, yes, I can still do the program in a smaller capacity that can still be accelerated to the capacity that I want it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And our last presenter is Salt and Light for Workplace Readiness.
Good evening.
Thank you. Morning.
So I do not have any slides. I felt with the time constraints, I just touched on a few things and really open for Q&A. I felt like might be best with the presentation here. As we looked at, we really kind of came to the dance late on the ARPA funds and awareness of the grant. But as I looked at it, very quickly saw that we certainly checked some of the boxes as far as, what we had already been working on and what our program was already accomplishing, but where we knew we could take it. And we had actually spent a couple of years already developing the program that we're now presenting ahead of identifying funds internally for trying to move this program forward. And so, when we looked at this, and of course, obviously the first and most obvious and increase in availability and affordability of food. We recognize the huge issues as it relates to food insecurity, Salt and Light. We've been addressing this need for the last 19 years. First as an emergency food program, the largest in Champaign County, and then transitioning in 2004 to the more developmental approach that we now have both in Champaign and much more largely in Urbana. And with that, I think the question really becomes, how should we help? Really not whether or not we should, but what should that look like? I know in our experience as an emergency food program, one of, I think we have around 26 or 27 in Champaign County, that the lines never got shorter. And so really the question was, how do we move the needle on that? And that's really what we have begun to address in creating space and opportunity, not just for folks to acquire the resources they need, but in that to use the skills, gifts, and abilities they already possess, affirm that capacity, and provide space for them to grow in that. And so really, that food side, we presently serve around 110 households who are earning store credit and shopping and making choices, which in and of itself is a very empowering and dignity-affirming approach, for folks really all across Champaign County, but many of those in Southeast Urbana at this point with the location that we have. With that access to food, we really have seen a great opportunity for a lot of the more marginalized parts of our community to really also experience community while also finding purpose. And so our work with seniors in particular, as well as folks with developmental disabilities. Every school district in the area, including Urbana, brings kids in with developmental disabilities in order to volunteer and learn. And so there are lots of different partnerships that we've developed in addressing access to food, but also how we go about doing that. Additionally, for us, we've seen this kind of organic, personal, and individual development towards job readiness. And so in looking at that, it was, okay, how can we take this and provide a more intentional structure that we can then more replicate those outcomes that we're seeing organically? And so, for us, with that, we know that really a lot of it rests in relationship. What we have found over time is that for most of the folks that we see on a regular basis who are needing to access basic resources, many of them, really what they need is someone to believe in them before they are able to believe in themselves and what they're capable of. And with that, we see that kind of growth. And so the model that we have created here is really all about creating that really kind of mutually supportive environment through small groups where there's accountability and support, while we also train and equip in soft skills, life skills along that path. And from what I've observed, at least in the kind of the headings of the different programs, it would appear at least as though we're one of the only really kind of job training or workplace readiness programs that's applying for funding, unless I'm mistaken. All of what we do really also, as we look at kind of the outline as far as what the city has identified as the goals, really also seeks to accomplish, and I believe does fulfill, investing in infrastructure that increases community health, safety, and future resilience. At the end of the day, we firmly believe that folks who are and believe they are contributors to the community in which they live and they're a part of often feel more invested, and because of that, see more positive outcomes, whether it's in the workplace, as neighbors, as community members as a whole. And so really what we do is so much more than just providing stuff, as much as it is creating an environment that really fosters that kind of growth. At this time, I'd just like to open it up for any questions relative to our application.
Trying to think about with the partnership with Cunningham Township, do you currently do that, and would you still? Is this a part of it? If you could speak on that.
Yeah, so, and I do apologize for not introducing Lisa Schultra, who is our Director of Community Engagement, and so that's why I asked her to be here as well to help answer questions. So yeah, our partnership and the ways in which we work with the township would not change. Those would continue.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your presentation and your presence in our community. I may, through my question, show that I didn't read very well, because what I see in this is part of the funding in this would go towards, if I'm right, towards paying participants with in-store credit. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there
And
were
so-
basically two parts. Yeah.
And so I did read that correctly. So that means that the funding going in to do this is coming back into Salt and Light as purchases through your sales.
Yeah, so currently the way our model works is our participants volunteer at Salt and Light and earn minimum wage and store credit that they can use to shop. And this is opposed to the typical handing out of a bag of groceries. They now have the opportunity, for choice in that. And so, yeah, so what we're requesting in this is specifically it's really half of the funds during the cycle for those that are in the workplace readiness. So really, because what we've done is identified these two separate tracks, and so we have allocated 100 spots at any given time for our enrichment track, which is really our folks for whom meaningful employment outside of Salt and Light is probably not realistic, whether that's seniors or folks with significant physical, developmental, social, emotional disabilities. So they would be on a separate track for which that is not a part of this request. So this request is specifically for store credit related to those participants in the workplace readiness program. And it's half of what we would anticipate the cost of that being over the cycle of the grant, with us covering the other half of that, along with all of the ancillary curriculums, classroom costs, other miscellaneous costs associated with facilitating the program.
Thank you. That clarifies it for me.
Yeah.
So, this is kind of split, right? Staffing and then the
Correct.
participant costs. Do you currently provide this service? And if so, how many people do you currently?
So we have the credit earning portion of it, and we right now are averaging about 110 households. So it's the way our accounts work is they're a household account. So that way, say, a single mom with a couple of kids, and they want to volunteer together, they actually all, for every hour, that's 3 hours that they're earning store credit. So we do provide that currently. And so really, and we have some educational pieces that are more a la carte. So really, that's kind of what we've been looking at is we have some of this educational stuff already, some of it, and then we have the credit earning, but how might we bring this together in one holistic program? And so that's where half of the cost really is associated with the hiring of that individual, because that's kind of been what has prevented us from moving forward is just the margin. We, right now in our staffing, we just don't have the margin that it's going to require to really facilitate not only the affinity groups and the training of the volunteers who are working with the participants, but also the follow-up and the check-ins with the participants and monitoring the program.
And I think more structured support as well for people who are job seeking, because right now we have had classes that are available, and like Nathan said, they've been completely optional, but there hasn't been any guidance or structured coaching for people as to specifically how those classes would benefit them or fit into an individualized plan of a path toward employment.
I may again be talking what might happen in the future, but and I appreciate the fact that you recognize that poor people have lots of abilities and lots of skills already they bring to the table. So my question is that some people, this one staff person might be helping them get a job, but some people might actually benefit from being sent to Parkland for job training and education. And I guess right now you're not probably ready to do that kind of thing, but I just want to throw that out there.
Yes, so we've had one of our newer board members is the next president of Parkland College, Pamela Lau. And so we've had a lot of conversations actually around some of the different ways that we might be able to partner with Parkland in offering all different kinds of secondary education opportunities, workplace training opportunities. So certainly, and that's where for us, we don't want to try and create all of the things that might already be there. So it's consistently, even like now, we have Carl's Mobile Clinic a couple times a month. Their drug interventionist is there several times. The largest Narcotics Anonymous meetings in the area meet in our building a couple of times a week. We just, a number of partnerships in the area, so that would be no different, and that is our intent to continue to pursue. And that's one of the things, I think that we've learned over time is the importance of retaining a certain degree of flexibility as we step into any sort of programming change, recognizing that these are individuals who have their own stories and their own challenges, and so how we seek to accommodate that is by ensuring that we retain that flexibility in our programming, so it's not just this rigid, you have to check these boxes, but really, and that's really for us too, in the beginning stages of bringing in new cohorts is, what are your goals? What would you like to accomplish, and how do we help you accomplish that?
And in the model that you will see laid out there, that's really the purpose of those affinity groups that are described that the staff person would be overseeing. There's a reason that it took us 2 years to arrive at a model that all of our staff could agree on, retain the appropriate amount of support balanced with flexibility for individual choices.
How do you, and if you do nothing? I guess I don't get to say anything. Thank you.
You can send those questions in. Well, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you all
for
very-
being the very last. We appreciate
Yeah, thank you for your stamina.
Listening and still having questions, even though we're the very last.
It's great to see you. All right, so we need to
Had-
continue this meeting till,
Mayor Marley?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion, we recess till tomorrow at 7 PM.
okay, you're way ahead of me then.
And I will second.
All right. And we will reconvene tomorrow at
We need
7
to
PM.
Say aye or yea or nay.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right.